Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another thrill-packed edition of the Jim Cornette Experience. Today, we're going to try to make the wrestling business entertaining since the promotions themselves won't give us any help. It's the chicken salad from chicken poop edition of the Jim Cornette Experience. And joining me, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. He's the best plucking podcaster in the whole coop. The great Brian Last, everybody.
Aloha, Jim. Pluck you. A pleasure to be here once again for whatever it is we're going to talk about. We can't be too much about modern wrestling because what the hell are we going to talk about?
Well, it's still going to be an excellent show.
Okay.
And,
all right.
I'm sorry.
No, I didn't know there's going to be an egg theme to the show, but okay.
Well, you chicken pluckers out there, boy, has there ever been a wrestling war where somebody went over by default? Where the other guy just said, you know what, fuck it, I ain't showing up. Yeah, just let him have it.
I don't know why it makes me think of it when Herb Abrams announced that he was starting the UWF and he was going to, destroy the WWF because he was going to do what WWF could never do. He was going to have pizzazz.
He had the pizzazz and it destroyed his nasal passages.
I mean, it can't be a war if there isn't a war. It can't be a war if it's just we have a big giant conglomerate over here that kicks ass everywhere and we're trying to survive in the field as well.
And
it's not a war.
It's and I mean, we talked about it a week or two ago on the program. When you lose your grip on something and it gets away from you in terms of a ongoing wrestling promotion, in terms of the booking or the talent being over, we've seen it happen in the dying days of WCW. We saw it happen in numerous territorial wars. It's harder to get it back than it was to keep it going. And if you couldn't keep it going, a lot of times you can't get it back. But anyway, there are lessons to be learned from the past because, Brian, we are coming up on not only the holiday season, but also a special time, the 40th anniversary of all kinds of shit happen in the wrestling business over the next couple of months. Not only the Midnight Express 40th anniversary, but also the 40th anniversary of the first Starrcade. And coming up in a couple months, the 40th anniversary of the beginning of Hulkamania. And the 40th anniversary of the obvious visible start of Vince McMahon's national expansion.
You know what? Early next year, 40th anniversary of the last Stampede.
Well, exactly. We're getting into all that stuff. And all things are as they were then, except I was there. Do you remember that show? Was that still a thing when you were a kid?
I've seen reruns, but it was not on the TV any longer when I was a child, no.
No, not on the TV. It wasn't sitting right on top of the TV next to the fishbowl. That was a great CBS network television program back in the 50s. It was aimed at adults. You Are There. And they would reenact a famous moment in history, and the opening, narration was, all things are as they were then, except you are there. And it was like, the Lincoln's assassination and, heavy shit, right? And then they redid it in the 70s on Saturday mornings for a kids' educational informative program. But they still, and that was the grabbiest thing. All things are as they were then, except you are there. Well, over the next few months here on the program, we're going to be taking people back to where I was in the middle of all this shit. Because as we will illustrate over however many programs, I went from being the lowest paid, least important member of the talent roster in a medium-sized territory the business was down to the hottest goddamn heel in a big territory right as everybody's business was catching on. And we go from there. So we got a lot of hysterical historicals coming up on the programs.
All right. Hysterical historicals. There's our new program on CBS for kids.
There you go. All things are crazy. And I'm out of my mind.
What happens if when Lincoln was assassinated, there was a clown?
And then we finally found something that all those dejected and soon to be unemployed AEW wrestlers who will be on the breadline pretty soon, that they can do the casting calls for these things, and they can reenact their wacky childhood fantasies in the middle of a historical television program, which couldn't be any worse than what they're doing now. But I digress. Before we get to anything really important, let's check in with one of our listeners. No, I kid. It's Joseph from Maine. He's actually, I don't want to narrow this down because this town he says he's from, it's one of those hyphenated towns. It's got two names, and both of them sound like the town whore is a virgin, and they've not even got one stoplight. So I don't want to, he's probably the only Joseph in this whole town is what I'm saying. So I'll broaden it out to Maine so we don't put the finger on him. Joseph is a 19-year-old in his first semester of college. And he says, I've struggled with moving to a different town for school and not having many actual friends on campus. Don't worry, Joseph, you'll find out pretty soon in life you don't have any actual friends. But he says, but I always have two friends I can count on to cheer me up and make me forget about my loneliness, and their names are Jim Cornette and Brian Last. How about that, Brian? You're even included on this.
I'm not your friend.
Well, you're Joseph's friend, whether you like it or not.
He seems all right. I don't like being associated with you in this manner.
Well, you know, friendships make strange bedfellows. What can I say?
It's the 40th anniversary this year of when I didn't know you.
Boy, those were happy times. I'll continue with what Joseph was saying. I've seen many say that you just being a constant help people's lives feel normal. Possibly their grammar feel. I've seen many say that you just being a constant helps people's lives feel normal, and that can't be more true for me. Your talk of classic wrestling and rants about the new stuff is great. Best regards, Joseph. And he said, P.S. Can I get a Conan from Brian if this is read on the air?
Conan! He did it twice in the original video.
Does he ever answer you?
Conan or Don Callis?
Well, either one of them. If you're in the mirror and you say that 3 times, does he answer you? Yo, let me speak on this.
If I say it 3 times, I hear something rummaging around by the garbage cans outside.
Hey.
What?
That's not Conan. That's a muskrat.
Ah.
We've got a fox here on the castle.
I've never even seen a muskrat. What does it look like?
Muskrat.
There was a G.I. Joe named Muskrat in 1988, but what does a muskrat actually look like?
Well, a muskrat is a musky smelling rat looking character that walks around at night.
Does it walk around on 2 feet?
Well, the captain and Tennille, according to them, they fall in love.
Isn't it? You know, it's so funny you bring them up. I was thinking about them the other day. How amazing and insipid it is that they became such big stars in the mid-70s.
Hosted their own network television program with 20-something million viewers a week.
And then just vanished. And then just gone.
Well, that's because they found out, first of all, the captain, he couldn't sail worth shit. He had no fucking license. He was a complete outlaw ship captain. They made him turn in his yachting cap. And then Tennille took off with a legitimate serviceman.
See, that's where music is like wrestling. Here we have this talented pianist who could do a lot in the studio, but has moop face, looks like shit, no personality. What do? Yeah. Put a captain's hat on him. I'd call him captain. That's all you have to do.
Yeah. But Tony Tennille, once she saw Captain Mike Rotunda, boy, she never looked back at old Daryl Dragon. No, but Tony Tennille, she could sing, and she was a comely, a fetching woman.
I didn't say she couldn't sing.
She was a handsome, striking, statuesque woman.
Did you like their music?
Well, when she's asking you to do it to her one more time, what do you think the response is going to be?
You can like the theme. You could hope for the theme, but that doesn't mean you like the music.
Well, Love Will Keep Us Together was jaunty and bouncy and filled with frivolity.
And doesn't sound like anything that coincides with the Jim Cornette we know.
Well, these things are anomalies.
Love will keep us together.
Love will keep us together. I will be there to share forever.
What did you think What did you think of the trend of like the goofy husband and the lead singer wife? Like Sonny and Cher became big on TV right around the same time, right?
Well, that's why the Captain and Tony got their shot, because it would actually Sonny and Cher was a couple of years before that.
Was it before that? Okay.
Oh yeah, Sonny and Cher. Did they debut? Hold on. I'm going to say it was 71 or 72. Captain and Tennille had no hits till 74. Google that and see when Sonny and Cher went on network television. See if I'm the 71-72 season. That's what I'm going to say.
It says here that it debuted in 1971 as a summer replacement.
Bam! Yeah.
So you were 9 years old?
Yes.
You were watching it?
Yes, because Cher knew Bob Mackie, and that made all the difference.
That made all the difference.
That made all the... Boy, howdy, she could stand there on network television looking like she wasn't wearing a goddamn thing and still meet standards and practices.
Was Mama Cornette loyal to a specific network?
No. The show was the thing. The play was the thing, Brian.
So it wasn't like we're not leaving CBS tonight. Ed Sullivan used to be on Sundays, so we have to stay here on Sundays?
No. For heaven's sake. Although Jackie Gleason was untouchable. The boom camera shot flying in over Miami, over the water into Miami Beach. Miami Beach, the greatest audience in the world. You never missed that in the Cornette household.
All right. Well, we're talking about the
Why
Captain.
were you distracting me? We were talking about whether the Captain and Tennille actually, I think they're probably still married. They're still together, probably still happy. No?
I think one of them may be dead, but I think they broke up too. Hold on.
Well, Google that. Did one of them kill the other?
No, I don't think it was that.
I'm betting Tony strangled him.
Captain and Tennille.
Was he heavily insured?
A lot of pictures show up of just a generic white man, but he's wearing a captain's hat, so you know who it is. As big as they were, you would have thought you would say award shows or something. Did they become monks? Did they go to Tibet? All right. Tennille filed for divorce from Dragon in the state of Arizona on January 16th, 2014.
Son of a bitch.
After 39 years of marriage.
40 years, and finally, she had her Popeye moment?
Dragon was unaware of the termination of the marriage until he was served with the divorce papers. The divorce documents referenced health insurance or health issues.
Insurance!
And Tennille had written in her blog in 2010 that Dragon's neurological condition, known as essential tremor, was characterized by such extreme tremors that he can no longer play keyboards. This is getting sad.
Now wait a minute. So she rides that gravy train for 40 years because she was the star in the act, but he was the business mind. He was the original fucking
captain.
The captain of the ship. He was the musical genius behind this whole thing. And then finally, he gets the tremors, he gets the trembles, the shiz aches, and he can't play the piano anymore. She can't ride that gravy train. Where were they playing? The fucking Boom Boom Room down at the Holiday Inn West?
Dragon later stated that some of his health problems were the result of errors in dosing his medication. In 2016, Tony Tennille...
Why do you give a man with the shakes the opportunity to pour his own fucking medicine?
I don't think that's what he said. How is that when you pulled out of what I just said?
Isn't that like putting the stroke victim in talent relations?
Let me continue here. In 2016... Now there's a throwback. That's pretty good. All right. Well, let's get off the NWA. In 2016, Tony Tennille's memoir, co-written with her niece, Caroline Tennille St. Clair, was published. In it, Tennille painted an unflattering picture of Captain Dragon and their years together, writing that he was controlling and emotionally distant. Here's a quote. I can say without exaggeration that he showed no physical affection for me during our very long marriage, she wrote. claiming that the couple always slept in separate bedrooms.
Oh.
Dragon and Tennille remained close friends until his death, from complications of kidney failure, January 2nd, 2019 in Prescott, Arizona. Tennille was at his side when he died.
Yeah, just not married to him. She bopped in from a spa day over at the Hilton or something to drop. Daryl's dying. Guess I got to stop by. She got out of the last 3 years of all them trembles and shakes and everything. But she said he was emotionally distant. Well, look, he's like Gargano, Johnny Sameface. He's only got one expression. It could have been that he was looking at her with love and affection. But she just didn't know it because he made Buster Keaton look like a goddamn mime.
Maybe he just got sick of her.
Well, no, because she served him. He got served.
Well, maybe he was a nice guy and he didn't want to, he's like, okay, I'll just do my stuff, but, I don't want to disturb the marriage and upset the kids, so I will put up with Tennille.
How old were the kids after they'd been married for 40 years?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
He was born in 42. She was born, she's older than him. She was born in 1940.
Wait a minute. She was already in her mid-30s at the time that they achieved their greatest fame?
That's right.
And she's still living.
That's not really unique. I mean, actually, Blondie, Debbie Harry was like in her 30s when Blondie finally hit.
True. Very true. And she's still alive, too.
I think that's actually one of the sad things about media today. And you could say it kind of started in a lot of ways with MTV. It would have happened one way or the other. But once everything became visual, it was harder for that to happen. Debbie Harry was a beautiful looking woman. But if you see who makes it today, who gets pushed as a pop star, pop stars is really what everything is. Even country now, everything's pop. You don't have older people getting a shot usually. And if you look at how many people struggled for years and finally got a break in the 70s specifically and ended up making great music or being a part of great things, they probably wouldn't have those opportunities today.
Well, there's a wrestling similarity in that in those days, because there wasn't home video, there wasn't the internet, you couldn't see people instantly if they did something in a garage in Van Nuys. So it took years for you to work your way up to being seen, whether it was a rock band or a wrestler or an actor or whatever. In a lot of cases, it took years of going and doing bullshit shows in small places, and that's where you got experience. So by the time that you did get a break, not only were you brand new, but you actually knew what you were doing. Surprise, surprise.
I hate to go back to the Beatles because they're the biggest and best ever, but the Beatles always said what made them so good was playing in Germany, playing in that strip club every single night. Multiple sets, hours a night. They had to play. They had to become good. And very similar to music, maybe not everyone has that kind of repetition or that amount of shows is hard to get booked, especially in some of the towns around the country right now. But with wrestling, it's the same thing. If you break into wrestling, it's hard to get booked. There aren't a lot of places to get booked. And unfortunately, the people you'll work for, will probably have bad sensibilities or at least be willing to accept other people's and just let bad shit happen. So you're surrounded by bad influences and the wrong ideas from early on.
What about if the Beatles had either just known one song and played it over and over for hours every night and nobody said anything about it? They just accepted it. Or none of them could fucking carry a tune, or somebody couldn't fucking play what, and they say, oh, it's great, it's great. Then everybody, the course of the world changes because nobody's willing to tell somebody, hey, you fucking suck. But anyhow, what were we talking about?
The Captain and Tennille.
No, before that. Oh, Joseph. Yes.
Happy birthday, Joseph.
And your amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
That's right.
It wasn't his birthday. He didn't say anything about his fucking birthday, did he?
Well, it has to come up at some point.
Well, okay, even a fucking clueless co-host is right once a year. All right.
That's right.
I got one more email. This is something that we talked about it. You, me, we. The royal we talked about this on a previous show. This is an update on say. You remember we talked about the Ric Flair energy drink.
Woo!
Woo! And how it was going to be on the desk on the AEW television program so that the announcers have a reason to be whacked out of their minds.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. Where is this beautiful mushroom elixir that cures problems with the soul at the cellular level?
Well, yes. I think it's on back order. That's why they haven't got it up there yet. But Justin from Ashland, Kentucky, sent an email in, and it brought something to light that I don't think that either one of us were aware of. Hello, Jim. When Brian read the ingredients of Woo Energy on the episode of the drive-thru, while laughing through my tears, I noticed one of the ingredients could spell the end of AEW and the world as we know it.
Oh, I must have missed that in the ingredients, so I apologize.
Well, no, remember you were reading all the ingredients of this, that, and the other thing. We recognized some of those words, and mushrooms are in there somehow.
Lion's mane.
Yes, that was another one.
Turkey tail.
Plant, turkey taint, whatever the case may be. But Justin goes on as the ingredient you mentioned, and I remember you, and I think we even said, what is that? Cordyceps. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that because that was the first time I'd really seen that word.
Well, apparently, that's because we're not with it like the young kids. We're not the hep cats. We're not out there wearing our zoot suits and on the corner, tuned into all the things happening on the street. Because Justin says, you aren't a video game guy, Jim, so I figured I'd give you a heads up. Cordyceps is the mind-controlling fungus that takes over the planet and causes the collapse of society as we know it in The Last of Us, which is apparently a video game that HBO turned it into a show, but it may go from zombie fiction to zombie documentary by season 2 if they've got this stuff in their energy drink. And Justin finishes, by the way, I don't know if Woo Energy is the Waterloo of AEW, but it could wind up its ICOPRO. But
that is funny.
So
that is funny.
Cordyceps is a thing, a fungus. Mushroom is a fungus, right? The mind-controlling fungus in a video game. And they've got it listed as an ingredient in the energy drink. Brian, I'm just a small town bird lawyer. But when you're selling either a beverage or a foodstuff or something that could be called anything consumable by the human being, or even most of our domesticated animal friends, if you're selling that to the public, can you just make shit up on the ingredients of what's in it? Is that according to Hoyle? Can you just either make up fictitious shit or lie in various ways about what's in this stuff that you're wanting people to eat or drink?
Well, I'm back on their notorious website right now. I'm trying to see if it's a FDA-approved product. Sometimes they have supplements that says this has not been approved by the FDA.
How can you got to have a license for your fucking dog. How can the county let you sell shit that people are going to eat? I imagine if you were selling fucking burgers out of a manhole cover on Main Street, the city'd come and shut you down.
Well, once again here, cordyceps are widely known to boost energy and rejuvenate the mind, body, and soul.
What?
Helping you reach new heights. Our mushroom energy boosting blend can help increase mental clarity, enhance performance, and elevate stamina. It can also help balance microflora in the gut and support overall cognitive brain function.
You might not have cognitive brain function if you... I found this again. Is it spelled Cordyceps?
That is it. Yes, correct.
It's the mind-controlling fungus that takes over the planet and causes the collapse of society as we know it in a video game called The Last of Us. And they're bragging that's in, and they're describing its healthful benefits. Look, cordyceps, is that even a real term for anything?
I'm on the website. I'm trying to see anything about this being FDA approved.
I'm just saying, just Google that word and see, is this a flower that we don't know about? Is this based in any kind of real thing that it could be in there? Or are they just pulling our puds? I'm going to get
Cordyceps is a genus of the ascomycete fungi, or fungi, I guess I should say, that includes about 600 worldwide species. Diverse variants of cordyceps have had more than 1,500 years in use in Chinese medicine.
So it's already here. No wonder all these people are voting for Trump.
Most cordyceps species are endoparasitoids, parasitic mainly on insects and other arthropods, and a few are parasitic on other fungi.
So they're having you drink a drink with parasites in it.
It looks like a cheese doodle coming out of the ground. You gotta go to Google. You gotta see the Wikipedia photo. It looks like a Cheeto coming out of the ground.
Do you remember the new product from Uranus Corporation segment in the Groove Tube?
I do, yeah.
Another fine product from Uranus.
I want to see Ric Flair, one of the greatest speakers, one of the greatest people on the mic in the history of the business. I would watch if every week on AEW he has to stand there for 60 seconds and answer questions about this. What's in this drink, why he endorses it, anything. He doesn't have to answer how much money he's being paid, but just any information about this, I want to see what he could explain.
Oh, my God.
Cordyceps. There's nothing here that says, it has like, if you go to the About, it has the ingredients and has the pictures of the various mushrooms here. Terms of use, return policy. What is the return policy?
Return policy is if you have a bad trip, you'll never come back.
We are unable to accept returns or refunds on any product.
Oh, okay. Yeah, pays your money, you takes your chances. Step right up, step right up.
And yeah, that's all we can find out here. Here we go. Let's see. For 18 plus, it has caffeine, taurine, vitamin B12. Says nothing about FDA approved. Let me turn this around.
Turn it upside down. Help you see it any clearer.
Well, I'm trying to see these photos of the can. Let's see. Here's the disclaimer. Hold on. Can I turn this?
Ladies and gentlemen, Brian is looking at pictures of people's cans on the internet while we're doing our broadcast today.
Consult your physician before purchase and consumption. Do not take this product if you have any type of blood disorder, liver or kidney disorder, high blood pressure, heart disease, central nervous system disorder, or any other medical condition. Do not take this product.
Wait a minute. A goddamn a fucking boil is a medical condition. A bunion is a medical condition. Do not take if you have any medical condition. Are they pretty much spreading out to cover their wide asses there?
Do not take this product if you are pregnant or breastfeeding. Do not take while operating heavy machinery or motor vehicles. Do not mix with alcohol. You hear that, Rick? Or medication. Do not exceed one serving within any 24-hour period. Jesus Christ, what is in this fucking thing? Disclaimer.
That's not the disclaimer?
No, that was just the warning. Here's the disclaimer.
Oh, good Lord.
Legends LLC, without the vowels, so just LGND, that's the parent company, I presume, is licensed, it's licensed intellectual property, brand, manufacturers, retailers, and distributors take no responsibility for the misuse of this product. By using this product, you accept full responsibility for any adverse events of health complication that may arise from its use. I have one of my vitamin waters here on the desk. Does this have anything like that? Here are the ingredients. There's no warning and then a disclaimer on the bottle.
Well, wait a minute. So what you're saying is they've said that make sure that you ask your doctor before you take this stuff, but don't take it if there's anything wrong with you whatsoever. And if you do take it because there's nothing wrong with you whatsoever, don't take it more than once a day or we're throwing our fucking hands up and walking away from you. Additionally, if there is indeed anything wrong with you and you fuck up and take a sip of this shit anyway, we have just come out and stated flat out that we're not responsible. If you drop dead, turn blue, or burst into flames, we don't know you, and we disavow any knowledge of what the fuck you were all about.
Well, Jim, as it says here on the can, if you don't like it, learn to love it. Consult your doctor, just not your attorney. Ric Flair drip powered by legends. I don't even feel like we're doing a free spot for them.
Goddamn. I just bought 2 cans of the fuel that the fucking yard guys use for the leaf blower, and it doesn't have that many warnings and hazardous fucking notices plastered all over it.
I'm going to buy some of this and keep it in my car in case I run out of gas. I can put this in the fucking car and get home. Ric Flair Energy, only containing a mild dose of plutonium in each bottle. 18 plus.
And if you have cancer, folks, this is radioactive. So it'll save you on chemotherapy. No, the Ric Flair IV drip apparently is what they're going for.
It will deliver hours of sustained, non-jittery energy and focus without the crash. Please do not have a second can.
Well, the crash comes if you operate the heavy machinery. While you're... Well, but nothing, here's the thing. One more thing before we segue into something completely fucking different. If you're a goddamn guy who goes to work every morning about 6 o'clock at a construction site, removing the fucking earth mover or the fucking the steam shovel or the plow, or what is that big thing with the big scoop? The bulldozer. That's what I'm talking about. And you're some fat, poor, half-toothless motherfucker making minimum wage for whatever people that do that type of thing do, and you're out there in the mud all day and the muck and the blood and the beer. That's who needs energy, right? So if you drink one of these, what are you going to do with the bulldozer? You're going to drive down the goddamn interstate and bash people off the side of the road? Isn't the idea of getting energy so you can perform the task that it specifically says don't do on the side of the container?
A lot of people drink different energy drinks. They drink Red Bull. I think that may be the most popular one. I'm looking right now at an image of a can of Red Bull. It has
That's what I was trying to think of, by the way, the other day, the name that I couldn't think of when I was talking about the things that I never would ever drink because it'd give you a fucking heart attack. Go ahead.
It has nothing here in terms of warnings or disclaimers. Disclaimers? Who has disclaimers on their drinks? I've never seen that before.
If you go to 7-Eleven and buy one of these over the counter, do you have to sign a fucking release?
Does 7-Eleven carry these?
Well, wherever you buy this, is it like, if you want to get in the ring for 10 minutes with Mr. Wrestling Tim Woods, you got to sign this release? You're not going to sue us?
Well, we did hear some feedback from people before we completely move on from this. Do you know how much this cost?
I have no idea.
You can get a 6-pack of Strawberry Banana Woo Energy. Again, Strawberry Banana Mushroom Elixir. 6-pack, $25.
Ouch! That's
plus shipping.
Well, I guess because it's apparently not available at local 7-Elevens near you. You got to have it mailed. Apparently, it's brought in a fucking specialized truck from the military that carries radioactive waste, but that's $4 and some odd cents a piece, right?
How long until someone gets sick from this? How long until someone goes down and blames Ric Flair?
Well, how would you know? How would you know? It could have been anything. He drank that. 3 hours later, he fucking burst into goddamn pink jelly and vomited up his toenails, but
I think they should go further with this. They should go to other wrestling legends. The Jake Roberts energy drink. I think it's a wonderful business to start.
What about the Jake Roberts energy toot?
Just go behind the stairs.
Remember, like the candy, the pixie sticks, where it came in a straw thing, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Just have it right there at the counter, the Jake Roberts energy toot. And it's for truck drivers and people on the go. And they just pick up the straw and it's already loaded. You just pop the top and,
I think if Tony ever gets rid of Jake, this may be something the NWA could definitely do with him.
Well, because they've laid the groundwork already.
They love cocaine.
And if they had been discreet about it, just with these festive, candy striped fucking Jake Roberts toots, instead of having it laid out there like Scarface on the table, they could have just been quietly going about their business, and it wouldn't have been so blatant. If you know about the Jake Roberts toots.
Would the NWA be in as much trouble as they are today if on the same pay-per-view where Father James Mitchell decided to have a cocaine party in the building, if he was arrested on the same episode?
No, I think because, see, that way...
If it led to his arrest, if the cops saw that and showed up at the arena 2 matches later and you get to see on TV him get arrested.
Yes, because that way you would have satisfied the Hayes office, for example, back in the old days of movie censorship.
The Hayes Commission?
Well, no, the Hayes office. Because he was a former postmaster, but he was put in charge of the movie code of America. And evildoers, crime always had to be punished. The bad guy had to lose in the end. That's right. Remember, the early gangster movies were pre-code so that they could get away with. Yeah, and Marino Sullivan could wear the 2-piece in Tarzan the Ape Man. But by 1934 came along Tarzan and his mate. She's in the 1-piece again, right? And they had to dial things back. So in this case, if Mitchell had got arrested, then they could have passed that because evildoers were punished and good triumphed in the end.
See, go all the way. If you're going to do that, go all the way, because if you think that's going to get you publicity, I promise you a mugshot of Father James Mitchell on local television will get you a whole lot more publicity.
Oh, good Lord. And look at him. He cuts a striking figure. You could put a picture of him up and you could say local man arrested for satanic rites, local man arrested for drug charges, local man arrested for molestation of a goat, local man. He fits every category. And especially if he's in the makeup, not the makeup, but the getup, the suit, the full mock-up there, the red jacket and the black shirt and the whole 9 yards. It could be like, well, what's that? Aleister Crowley was arrested today at the Kmart location on Universal Boulevard in Orlando. And you could show that picture, it would work.
All right, well, we are going to move on from the caffeine and cocaine portion of the wrestling business right now, I believe. But it's your show.
And as a matter of fact, here is something that you can get, ladies and gentlemen, something you can put your hard-earned money into that will not poison you, will not make your ovaries fall out, will not fucking prolapse your goddamn sphincter, won't do any of these things. It'll do good things. It'll make people smile, your family smile, your friends smile, or even you smile, depending on who the recipient of a gift from the fine selection at Cornette's Collectibles is. And we have just passed a landmark event, Brian. Everything, not only the Midnight Express action figure sets, but everything that has been ordered through November the 8th has been autographed by me, is in the hands of the Feather Bottoms, and they are now packing and preparing to ship the last 250 or less outstanding orders, and we will be all caught up, as I've been mentioning, all the Midnight Express figures 4-pack sets, not only from the pre-orders, but also from the orders since then, all the way through the first part of November, will be out by Thanksgiving. Those fine Feather Bottoms over there have been flummoxed, but they've been working their little fingers to the bone. And now this is the perfect time to tell you that now that we've caught up, things are starting to pick up for Christmas. And if you would like the 40th anniversary Midnight Express action figure 4-pack set with the book, the autographed photo, the certificate of authenticity, one of the last 700 some available in the world, and they will never be redone, then please, if you're outside the United States, order that now if you want it by Christmas. And if domestically, please, for the sake of all of us over here in our mental state, order by Thanksgiving weekend. And we believe domestically in the United States, it could happen that if you order the first week of December, you might get it, but give us a little extra time because we're only several people over here now. But Brian, that's a landmark. It's the first time in a couple months, everything's signed, everything's caught up in their hands, almost everything delivered, the last 250 packages or so going out. And people are happy as pigs in poop to be getting their and by the way, speaking of pigs and poop, the other Midnight Express members, that was a horrible segue. Dennis and Stan and also Bobby's family are very thankful because, as you all know, they are all sharing equally in the profits from this venture, and it's a nice Christmas bonus for them. After all this time, 40 years later, we're going to make more this Christmas than we made that Christmas and not leave the house. Did I mention JimCornette.com is the place to go for all of these, including the action figures of just little old me, the T-shirts, the photos, the Cult of Cornette membership certificates, and DVDs, books. My God, what else have we got over there? Holy mackerel. And soon to come, an energy drink.
Oh, God. Can you imagine?
Mine is going to be, instead of mushroom-based, mine is going to be poppy-based.
That may be a problem.
Well, apparently it's not for them.
Not for the consumer, but it may be a problem for the company.
Well, I don't think so. I think, I want a much mellower jitter than you get with the mushroom-based energy drinks, so I'm going straight to the poppy.
I got to know if anyone else out there knows anything, because I don't drink these energy drinks. Do any other drinks have disclaimers and warnings like this one does? I do not drink more than one of these a day. I've never seen that before.
Actually, the warnings on cigarettes aren't as stern and fucking cautionary. As I'm wondering is there any type of like household cleaning product that goes that far? Well, I guess it didn't say if you get any of this in your eyes to flush them out and call a doctor. But hey, maybe that's what, God damn it.
How are they going to make
tie-in.
money? Oh, go ahead.
The perfect tie-in. They're going to start using the Woo energy drink as the fucking mist that all the girls are blowing in each other's eyes.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Didn't work? All right.
I used that joke last time.
They can't all be. Did you?
Yeah.
Maybe that's where I thought of it.
Were you here? Were you with us?
Maybe that's where I thought of it at.
All right. Hit me with some more of my jokes.
Right. Hit me with your best shot. Well, hit me with some of your questions, because I promised you we did a full drive-through the other day and didn't have time for some of the questions, maybe any of the questions, because we were talking about the wrestling. And I said, let's do a couple of questions here on the experience before we talk about the modern stuff, then go back to the classic anniversary stuff.
That's right. Before we get back to the classic stuff, let's go through some of the other stuff here.
Let's go to some of the shitty stuff.
Jim, I have an email here sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Charlie in Starkville, Mississippi.
Our longest running questioner, Charlie, could have been a great FBI interrogator with as many questions as he's got on his mind. And obviously he does indeed bribe Mr. Last to be on a part of this program.
There's no confirmation of that. Britt Baker recently said that she thinks CM Punk is going to wrestle again. Baker said, here's a quote, "I think wrestlers always have the itch. Once it's in your blood, it's in there. And no matter how much you want it, will you stop? No matter how much you want to stay away."
She's a medical professional. She should know about these things. Most wrestlers have an itch, and once it gets in their blood, it's there to stay. Also, you can tell when they start breaking out in between their toes.
Listen, let's go back to this. Once it's in your blood, it's in there.
Oh,
and no matter how
much she added your blood, once it's in there, baby.
No matter how much you want to stay away, it's hard to stay away.
Get it out.
He came back after several years.
Pull it out.
I think if the time, place, and company is right, I think he would. So, Jim, what are your thoughts on Britt Baker's take on CM Punk and if he's going to wrestle again?
Well, we're trying to just have fun there. But no, that was a very non-confrontational, non-judgmental, specific take. Yes, of course, I would think that, in all honesty, the thing with this run in AEW is that it was a goddamn disaster for Punk personally because he couldn't get any enjoyment out of doing what he came back to do, which was trying to make a difference. And as he had mentioned when he turned down the WWE, he didn't want to be another guy coming back to do bad television. But he thought in error, in hindsight, that he could be responsible for a good television. He was responsible for a lot of good television, but he could never fucking nail it for the whole show because of other people involved. So I would think he would want to, and obviously go out, not for just any small company just to do it, but a major company where he could get a good or great payoff and do something that he was motivated to do. I don't see why he wouldn't. And we still think, even if they're just crazy up there and they're not going to run him out there in Chicago at Survivor Series, it will happen probably there, because where else? I don't think Punk's motivated to go to fucking New Japan and have some guy jump off the top rope and sit on his fucking face or whatever.
That sounds more like DDT than New Japan.
Well, I'm talking about it.
Wrestler sitting on his face? That sounds like DDT.
Inadvertently sit on his face rather than on purpose and have him enjoy it. I'm talking about the violent kind of landing on your face that you don't want, rather than the ones that they perpetrate over there where they stick their fucking anteater noses up the other guy's Hershey Highway.
I'd like to talk a little more about what Dr. Britt Baker was talking about, the blood-borne itchiness that is pervasive throughout wrestling. Terry Tayloritis, I think it's called.
Yes.
Any other comments on why so many people are itching around Britt Baker?
Maybe, they're just, it just comes about. It just comes about. And too much exposure to the sun. But anyway, that's my thought on yes. She a very measured response, very polite, and very obvious also. Yes, if the time, the place, the money, and the idea was right, I'm sure he'd do it.
Jim, I have another question here sent to CourtneyDriveThru@gmail.com from John Fell in Baltimore.
Boy, are you earning extra money for the holidays now? All the bribers are on the list today.
Hey guys, had Buddy Rogers not had a heart attack, do you think Vince Sr. would or could have turned him babyface? McMahon built his territory on hero champions. Do you think Buddy could have filled that role?
Oh, God, yes. And John, I'm not going to chastise you because, unless you, but certainly John has read the Tim Hornbaker book on Buddy Rogers. And in there, it plainly and concisely states Rogers was a babyface in various places at various times when he would go in and out of territories in the 50s. And oftentimes, he would actually worked a few-week program. I can't remember who the particulars were, but he worked a few-week program in Memphis as a babyface partner against a couple of heels. If he was a special attraction and would go in like that, a lot of times he would be the babyface because it was like you're bringing in one of the biggest nationally known wrestlers of the time. It'd be like if we brought in The Undertaker and Smoky Mountain Wrestling, for fuck's sake, whether he'd been a heel or not, people are still going to go apeshit about it. And where Rogers was established in a territory, if he was booking or, he liked being a heel better. And when he was defending a championship of any kind, he was usually a heel because that way he could do one of his patented finishes where he'd take a bump out of the ring and be injured and get counted out, not lose the belt, but not be pinned, that type of thing. That was easier as a heel. But if he went somewhere as an attraction or a tag team partner, a lot of the times until the late 50s when he was pretty much established, he would be a babyface in certain places. And obviously, he never got the NWA title until Thez was finished with it. So once he was the champion, even still, there were places that was like Flair. he got kind of an early Flair-like reaction where people went to see him when he came to town because it was him, not even necessarily because he was the champion. But he was still, and he was like Flair also in that he liked being a heel better and was probably better and more revolutionary at it, but he was so charismatic he could be a babyface if he needed to be. So the question was, at some point, if Rogers had stayed in the Northeast, he would have, don't you think, Brian, just by the natural scheme of things, the hottest heel in a territory for several years in a row almost always switches babyface, and then the new heel has a money run with that new babyface.
I don't know, because I think specific to the territory and the time, nothing was going to outrun the popularity of Bruno Sammartino.
Right.
And behind the scenes, Bruno and Buddy couldn't get along or work together. So then you're keeping Buddy as a heel with some fans until a full babyface turn. If he's not going to be able to team up with Bruno, so that's a separate thing on the card where it's Buddy and probably one of his friends.
Right.
Buddy and Billy Darnell against Johnny Barend and whoever Buddy gets along with this week. It would be tough there. You know, like Los Angeles, Freddie Blassie was able to do that.
He was all alone.
Where he was the top heel and then he turned babyface because he was such a great heel, we love him. I don't know if it would have worked exactly the same way in the Northeast for Buddy Rogers.
Well, but by the same token, if Rogers had the heart attack when Bruno was first winning the belt, with Rogers being as smart as he was, if he had been in perfect health, they would have had rematches that would have drawn big money in a variety of places up there. And maybe he could have somehow politicked his way into Bruno's heart. And with they would have rematched for probably close to a year with the size of that territory. Then would Buddy have gone to, provided he also hadn't tried to maybe lay plans to steal the territory and Vince Sr. was still happy with him, would he have gone to Vince and said, well, if Bruno's main event in the Garden, I could be the main event in Baltimore. And you could keep us on mostly opposite shows, except for maybe the biggest ones. And then, you know, golly, we could be a super team for a stadium event. That type of, where he was still in the mix, even though Bruno was the guy. That was Rogers' specialty.
You know, the bigger question that fans talk about a lot more in like the last 20 years or so since the Billy Graham DVD was, what if Billy Graham had turned babyface? Heyman's talked about it too.
Yeah.
What if, you know, instead of Backlund coming in and getting a year push, and people lie about this or pretend it wasn't it, Backlund was super over, at least for the first few years. But if Billy Graham had turned on the Grand Wizard, or if they had turned on him, but if you had had that moment of finally seeing him hit the other heels, and let the fans react to a babyface Billy Graham, it's pretty amazing to think what that could have been for at least a year or two.
Oh, he would have easily gotten longer as a babyface than he'd had as a heel.
Well, the question's more about his mentality and his health than anything else.
But think about that.
Does he have the meltdown if he loses the belt?
He wouldn't have had the meltdown. If he was doing as good as he was doing until the end of his title run, and it was never going to end, and he was going to be switched babyface, where truthfully and honestly, Graham could have got away with doing a lot less in the ring by being a babyface because he could have sold more, and he wasn't a big bumper. I'm talking selling with his face. He could have got another couple of years as champion, and because he didn't really, I mean, he wasn't as good as he was in his youth by that point, but he wasn't nearly as bad physically as he would be a few years later. Does that make any sense?
That makes sense. Jim, let me get you with one more before we get out of here, because this is actually something a lot of listeners have sent in. Various things here, following up on our Alexander Hammerstone MLW segment, I guess last week. First of all, the video we referenced on the drive-thru has been taken down. The rumor is that MLW threatened to sue Hammerstone when the video came down. But in it, he was explaining his situation. He's asked to be released. He's not being booked. He's not making money. I mean, this is a guy trying to, have a life. I don't know if he has a family or not, but he's not making money, and he's also prevented from making money anywhere else. So we talked about that, and if anyone has that video, please get it to us, because we'd like to play it on the air. I have an article here from Cage Side Seats by Sean Reuter. The Samoan SWAT team of Lance Anoa'i and Juicy Finau, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, were granted their release from MLW recently. And Lance Anoa'i is Samu's son, for the record.
Yes.
Anoa'i did an interview, and here are some quotes. I just wanted that freedom mainly for right now, especially with my family being at the top of the best company there is. I've missed a few opportunities being with MLW. That one on A&E, which was the Samoan Dynasty episode of WWE's Most Wanted Treasures. I missed the possibility of being on the tribal court that they were doing on the July 7th Smackdown, bringing in the whole family. I missed that opportunity. Now I can do it all. Now I could be at extra work. Now I could be at tryouts. Like, nothing is stopping me now, so I'm just ready to go. So the tribal court, they wanted a lot of us. They asked my grandfather, my dad, my uncles, me, Jacob. They wanted us all. And unfortunately, due to our contracts and everything, we weren't able to. But that's okay, We weren't able to. And we just carried on. And now we just don't know, man. Time will tell. And then let me just, there's a little bit more here.
In this case, I wish he might have read a prepared statement that may have been a little easier to follow.
Anoa'i suggested to MLW, or he was asked if he suggested to MLW that the exposure on WWE TV would be good for them. Here's a quote. We pitched that point and we got shut down. We don't know why. It is what it is. We just ran with it. They even did the A&E special, filming my whole family and our family reunion, and we weren't allowed to be in any of it.
Okay.
So, there's just a few missed opportunities, and hopefully it just comes right back around, and we'll be able to. Everybody will be able to see how big our family is, still growing. How big our family... Yeah, that is what it says here.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one left. There's a lot of guys. Jacob Fatu is my cousin. His brother Journey. Solo is already in there.
Wait a minute, his brother Journey?
He has a brother named Journey, apparently. I don't know.
Does he have another brother named Rush and another brother named...
Solo is already in there. Zila Fatu, who's Umaga's son. What
about Boston? Boston Fatu.
We just all just going, and we all young and hungry and ready to achieve and follow our footsteps, our family footsteps, and just keep the bloodline going. So again, there's another person, and it brings up Jacob Fatu, which makes it interesting. The idea that Jacob Fatu was invited to that tribal court. Go ahead.
I mean, that, if we do indeed take Lance's word, we have no reason to doubt it, but I don't honestly know whether they would have invited them to that point, because MLW is suing the WWE and has been suing them and has been very persistent with it. And every time something gets thrown out, it gets filed back or whatever the case. We're not going to sub-reference into that whole goddamn story. But I have a hard time believing that they would even have made the invitation. I do believe that somebody would have said, well, hey, can Lance be in it or can Jacob? And they would have said, oh, goddamn no. I believe that because they're fucking being sued. And either that, or if it came to MLW being asked if they can be in it, if they could be in it, it harms their case from MLW's side because they're trying to sue for these people being a monopoly and restraint of trade and whatever else is going on. And if one of the MLW contracted talents was seen probably making a bigger payoff to stand in the background of a company barbecue than what he makes to wrestle over in the other place, that's kind of hard to argue that anybody's restraining anybody except MLW.
I have another statement here. I don't know who this wrestler is. Arez, A-R-E-Z.
Oh, are these the ones that they wanted their release and they were told no, but they actually then were told, no, we released you 6 months ago, but nobody told them?
Let me see. To the general public, people of Earth. No, I find myself forced to address...
It didn't say that.
No, it does not say that. It does not say that. I find myself forced to address the following situation publicly with the hopes that a resolution can finally be found. I join the recent wave of fellow professional wrestlers that, just like me, have requested their release from MLW and its president and owner, Court Bauer. Firstly, I would like to very sincerely thank Mr. Bauer for his interest in my career more than 2 years ago when he invited me to join MLW. In spring of 2021, AAA presented me an offer on behalf of MLW to join their roster for 3 years. Although I did not understand the contract, as it was never presented to me in Spanish, and I am not an English speaker, and even though I did not have a work visa at the time of signing that would even allow me to accept a job offer in the USA, I told AAA that I was very interested and signed said contract.
And by the way, and that's what they used to do. Ring of Honor in the old days did that. All the indie promotions, they'll tell a guy, especially the luchadors, they wear masks. The airport people don't instantly recognize them. Tell them you're coming in to fucking visit your fucking cousin or take a tour of the Bowery or whatever.
The salary I was offered contractually was considerably below my indie rate, but I accepted it as I hoped to see my career grow by being a part of MLW.
And that's another thing is, just to be honest, BN Sports is a network, the network that their program was on when I did the commentary. I don't even know if they're still on, but BEIN Sports. They were fans of the MLW program, but they were based in South Florida, and they have a heavily Hispanic audience. Aired a lot of soccer, football, whatever. And that's why they were trying to have more Hispanic representation on television programs.
The reality is that MLW has not offered me any matches in over 18 months.
Jesus Christ.
And I see no interest whatsoever in offering me any work. With this situation, and knowing how much work it has cost me to survive based on my income as an independent wrestler, I respectfully requested my release to Mr. Bauer more than 6 months ago, which he refused. MLW has refused to cancel my contract in writing, even though I don't even believe it has any legal weight, as I was ineligible for work in the US at the time of signing, and a Spanish translation was never presented to me.
Again, obviously, this is a translation. Since he can't read or write English, apparently is what he's saying. This is his statement that's been translated from somewhere, because he talks better than you and me.
If I had the resources and team to challenge this in court, I'm sure the outcome would be favorable, but since I do not have these resources, I'm forced to air this problem publicly since my family's well-being is what is at stake. Let me stop it there, because that's a real thing. You can sign people to contracts where they can't work for competitors, or there are various different things that you can get around because you're not allowing someone to actually work and make a living. If MLW is holding people to contracts to prevent them from working for other companies in wrestling, but are also not giving them bookings, and also not supplying anything close to a fair income to live on, how can they prevent other people from having these opportunities? Quite frankly, if they ever got to court, like you said here, MLW would lose. The problem is, it costs a lot of money. Court Bauer's married to a lawyer, so we know who he's going to be using.
Well, yeah, and the contracts are written basically it would be adjudicated in New York, or is he in Scottsdale now, or whatever ritzy suburb? But it would be the equivalent of me here in Louisville saying, oh, shit, this guy in fucking Mexico City, boy, I got to sue him. Well, I can't just even have Stephen P. New go to Mexico City, right? And this guy, obviously, he's been starved so bad, he's so broke he can't pay attention. He can't hire a lawyer out of the blue and retain him to go through this laborious and lengthy process. to get out of. And we talked about this on a recent show in other terms. I can see a company with talent under contract not wanting to set a precedent, because if you let one guy that you don't really care whether he's there or not, if you let him go, then the guy that you really want to keep has the case. Well, what about me? You left me out. What's the difference here? And you've opened a can of fucking worms, peas, rutabagas, whatever you want to talk about. But if they haven't even entertained the idea of using this guy in a year and a half, for fuck's sake, at the very least, just, okay, fine. And you live in another country. So fine, you're done here. Thank you. That's kind of ridiculous. I don't know if I can see a good reason for something like that when he's not only not an integral part of the company, but he hadn't even been around in a year and a half. And, well, one more thing, these contracts, he said it was for less than his rate, his indie rate, or how did he phrase it? Less than the rate that he was getting, he signed to MLW for, because they all want to be on television, and they want to be on television in the United States.
Because it'll increase your rate, hopefully.
Right, but does that mean it was guaranteed money? He was getting a check for $200 a week or a month or whatever anyway, or did he just get paid if he worked, and he just never worked?
And even if you did work, that's part of the problem. Again, looking at it from the point of view of having a small company, trying to build it, having whatever aspirations Court Bauer and what's the other, MFN or whatever his name is, whatever they want to do.
MSNBC.
Whatever they're trying to do, they want to do something. It's been years now. You can't just hold guys to a contract because you're trying to win a lawsuit. You have to actually run shows where they can make money. In a world where an MJF never went to AEW and he was still working there, what would he be making? $30,000 a year at most? I mean, there's no path to making a lot of money with MLW. And a lot of these guys have limited windows where they can sign with a WWE or AEW, maybe no window. The window's wide open, ladies and gentlemen. Jump right in. But there's limited windows to get things done. You can sympathize with a small company trying to grow, but there's nothing happening. And I think the reality is it's never going to happen for MLW. And the lawsuit with WWE, that's really the end game, because it's never going to happen for MLW. So they got all these wrestlers under contract, they're holding them. Nothing's happening. And even if anything happened, nothing's generating money. Where are they drawing a house? Where do they have a respectable gate? Where are they making pay-per-view revenue? Merch money? They have an action figure line no one's bought. So they've tried things.
As a matter of fact, I understand that the people brought the tickets that they bought for last month's show back this month for a refund.
So you have to reckon it's not going to happen. So if it's not going to happen and you're also not creating any opportunities at all for these guys, what are you holding them to contracts for? It's not going to happen. But let's go back and finish this comment here, this quote statement. Regarding the multiple reports about the recent wave of MLW talent similarly requesting their releases, I find myself obligated to join these voices and find a resolution to what I believe is an unfortunate situation for all parties. I hope my fans and fans of Lucha Libre in general understand and can support me and any other wrestlers caught in a similar situation of being tied to a company that has no interest in giving them work. I hereby request once more that Mr. Court Bauer, I hereby request once more to Mr. Court Bauer my full release in writing from MLW. Sincerely, Arez, A-R-E-Z, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Again, it's not just one person.
Well, no, that's what I was saying, because, we might bring the details of this on the next program, but real briefly, I saw something on Twitter where this guy, and apparently I think his tag team partner, they had also been offered an MLW contract through AAA, and they signed it, and sometime way back, like early this year, they had asked for a release because they weren't being used or whatever the case, and it was turned down. And so they've been thinking they were under contract, but now they went back and tried again. And MLW told them, oh, we released you guys 6 months ago. Didn't AAA tell you? And that's the story they got. And I don't even know if that's been resolved yet, whether they are released or aren't released, or who released them, or who didn't tell who what, or who chased the cat that ate the rat that lived in the house that Court built. But that's an interesting story also, with a little twist at the end, like an O. Henry kind of tale.
Well, like you said, we'll follow up on this and see what else comes out, but it's an interesting time with the problems in the NWA and questions about their future, or whether even if they had a future, you'd want to work there. You could say the same thing about MLW. With all these stories, who would want to sign a contract there going forward other than a desperate wrestler, hoping that there'll be some kind of opportunity? Impact, reverting back to TNA. You know, with all the problems AEW has, one of the scariest things is the drop-off after that. And that there aren't that many places serious that are left out there.
It's sort of like all of the demons and the flames in the pit licking at your feet as you hang by your fingernails from the ledge. And the last drop is, oh my God, he's going to end up in garbage championship wrestling. Yes, there he's burst into flames. He's completely, totally gone. You know, the problem is a lot of these people, they're just not getting enough rest, Brian. A good night's sleep can help you out, and a lot of these people are not getting a good night's rest. They could think about things, roll over and take another 10 minutes to think about their lot in life and the choices that they're making. I think that would be healthier for everybody. You know who can help with something like that? Our friends over at Helix, at helixsleep.com.
That's right.
They can help you with these. And did you know, and Brian, again, they've been sponsoring us and our fine programming with their fine mattresses and merchandise for so long now that we've just ranted and raved about the greatness of their various makes and models and the warranties and the fact that they support the military and the first responders and the teachers and the students. And if you support all those people, well, there's hardly anybody left. We don't do anything for the goddamn CPAs. They're on their own. They make enough money. But
okay, I didn't know you had a problem with the accountants like this.
Well, it comes a couple times a year when I get news. But anyway, we've talked about the mattresses that have the cooling technology. As a matter of fact, we just got one of those in our own home. We decided to try that out, and it's freaky. It's like the mattress is air conditioned. The surface of the mattress is colder than the room, than anything around it. It's like a fresh, nice, cool dip in a garden spring. It's refreshing.
It's a fine mattress. You'll get a good night's sleep in. I've never heard of these comparisons for it
well,
before.
Watch out. You don't stick your head under the water or you'll drown.
Have you been drinking your mushroom elixir before bed?
Well, yes, and boy, those mushrooms, they grow under those cow patties. But I'll tell you the thing about the Helix I haven't mentioned. I just found this out. I'm talking about what we've raved about helixsleep.com. And their fine mattresses that they make for everybody, no matter what your body type or no matter what your sleep preference is, no matter what kind of intimate relations you like to have. They've got specialty things with slings and pulleys and ropes, a series of trusses. But nevertheless, did you know, Brian, that Helix mattresses do not contain fiberglass?
I mean, I'm happy to hear that. I presumed it. I'm glad to know that it's now been confirmed.
No. Do not assume. When you assume, you make an ass out of you and me, and you presumed, and that means that you make a pre out of you and
what does that even mean?
And me. A press out of you and me. But other brands of mattresses contain fiberglass. Other mattress companies use fiberglass as a flame retardant, but in their various products. But Helix mattresses are free of the harmful fiberglass materials because they own their own manufacturing facility, and they got no fiberglass. They don't allow peanuts in there. If you got a peanut allergy, they say, "Fuck you, get out." You're not allowed to bring those peanuts in here. It's a very clean place. And they've got that crew, their own manufacturing facility and team of skilled manufacturers. There's George, there's Larry, there's Jeffrey, and there's little Pismo, the whole team, and they sit there all day like little tinkerers, like at the elf's workshop when they're fixing the shoes for the cobbler there. You remember the cobbler? He was good with raspberries. And they make these mattresses with no fiberglass in them. So you don't have to worry about, well, obviously, if you're sleeping on a mattress containing fiberglass, because a flame retardant, you don't have to worry about burning to death. It won't catch on fire. It'll just give you 18 different types of cancer from your lungs to your brain to your asshole. And it's also, and boy, I'll tell you what, also it's very rough to sleep on that fiberglass.
Again, let's talk about the comfortable,
that's what
nice mattresses
wrestlers
with none of this, no fiberglass, none of this in the wonderful sleep.
You've heard of wrestlers having itches. Bad, that's because they sleep on mattresses with fiberglass. Oh. You're not going to get that with Helix. It says it right here. Fiberglass free, folks, for your comfort. Because there have been a number of health issues and lawsuits related to fiberglass in mattresses. Wait till Stephen P. New hears about this. So that's why we all sleep easy, knowing that Helix, there's no fiberglass.
That's right.
There's no broken glass. There's no stained glass, no bottle caps, no barbed wire, and no used hypodermic needles.
Well, again, I think people would expect these things, but let's talk about how nice these mattresses are.
Everything I just said is factual and true. It's a guarantee.
For once, you're telling the truth, and I believe you. But let's talk about these wonderful, fine, comfortable, sleepable, wonderful, terrific mattresses that we love here in this house.
What else do you want to know about something you sleep on that don't have broken glass or fiberglass or barbed wire or hypodermic needles or bottle caps in it? Past that, what else do you need to know? They're fine mattresses.
Well, how can I get one?
Well, you go to helixsleep.com, HELIX, and you take the quiz. What kind of mattress do you want? What do you like to sleep? How do you like on your side, on your back, your butt up in the air, with your nose in the mattress, whatever the case. And then they will send you to your door, or as we've discussed in the past, if you want to accept delivery through the window, if you can open the window wide enough to get the box in, and you will bring it into your home and unbox it, and it comes to life. And it's the finest and most comfortable and most coziest and most grammatically incorrect mattress that you'll ever have, and that contains no sharp or metallic or radioactive materials in the manufacture of same, because they handle all this shit themselves. They don't farm it out to the local fiberglass farm to stick stuffing in the thing. They use all unborn virgin goat's hair, and they even milk the little things ahead of time.
What? No.
Just so that you don't get any excess moisture inside the mattress.
Again, none of this, ladies and gentlemen, is in the official copy, and none of this is on the website, and none of this is what you have to think about or worry about with Helix Sleep. Fine, wonderful mattresses. Well, we have several here in the house, and we endorse them. We
let me tell you the best part.
Best part.
Because normally I say, well, you can get 20% off, right? That's normally the best part. How you can save money. I say you get 20% off. Well, no, I'm not going to say that today. Nobody's saying it. Because now Black Friday is coming up. Black Friday, the day that electricity ceases to exist all over the continental United States.
No, that's not
plunged into darkness.
No, that's not what Black Friday is. Black Friday has nothing to do with the electrical grid. It has to do with sales after Thanksgiving.
I'm sorry, that was that unsold pallet that I wrote one time. But right now, in honor of Black Friday, the sales that you're talking about, Helix is offering 25% off. 25% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows. And we just got the free pillows, and I'm sleeping on one of them. Because it's just as soft as a box of fluffy ducks.
They send you the free pillows?
Because we got a mattress.
We have mattress. I got to call someone.
Well, maybe they just figure with a head that size, you can't really fucking stick anything under it.
What are you trying to say?
I'm trying to say you got a big head. But anyway.
Hey.
Helix is offering 25% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners in honor of Black Friday. If you go to helixsleep.com/JCE and use the code, now listen to this very carefully, Helix Partner 25. Helix Partner 25. Helix Partner 25. I'm waiting for you to reiterate it for me so I can take a break.
Partner 25, celebrating 25 years since Jim said, I'm leaving Connecticut.
Actually, no, you're wrong. You're off a year.
Am I off
just
1 year?
because it's 25% off and we're a Helix partner. But since that's a different code than we have given before, I wanted to reiterate it. helixsleep.com/JCE. Use the code HelixPartner25, 25% off the mattress and 2 free pillows. It's like a sore Peter and a busted drum. You can't beat it.
That's right. Send us the pictures of the mattresses when they arrive or videos of them opening up. It's quite the thing to see.
Well, it depends on everybody. If everybody's decent and clothed and been bathed.
That's right. Be decent and clothed. Bathing
clean
is up to you.
Yeah, well, we want clean people.
Well, we can't tell if we're watching a video or seeing a picture how clean they are.
Have you seen some people?
Well, once again, promo code PIGPEN. Wait, what's the promo code?
The promo code is HelixPartner25.
For Helix Sleep, a fine mattress.
All right, Brian, I guess before we go any further, we ought to layeth the smacketh down on this week's episode of Smackdown so that we can kind of analyze what the winner of this war is doing to win the war despite boring the teetotal shit out of us. And, again, this program was a few dramatic set pieces in the ring, heavily, scripted and controlled dramatic interaction between the stars, punctuated in the middle by stretches of wrestling match, kind of like the cheetah segment in the Tarzan movie. And this is what's winning. I don't think we ought to review anything as much as maybe discuss the whys and wherefores and sometimes the preposterousness and a few of the things that are actually working that are carrying the whole kit and caboodle. Are you up for that?
There's no way to review this for that long because this was one of those episodes where there wasn't that much happening, even though, there's a few things, but then it was just a lot of time being eaten up by those boring matches.
Ticking away the moments that make up a dull day, frittering and wasting the hours in an offhand way, kicking around on a piece of ground in our hometown, waiting for someone or something to show us the way.
Pink Floyd has never sounded so white.
Well, I'll tell you what, they positively be translucent when I get finished with them later on. Anyway, so SmackDown on November the 10th, what's the feller's name that does the color? Corey Graves was off. Apparently he had a new baby. And boy, I'll tell you what, if he sells the fucking story to the National Enquirer, he's going to have a fortune on his hands, him having that baby. So they had Kevin Owens fill in as the guest color guy. And I guess if it fit, if this was what they came up with because they needed to suspend Kevin Owens, he's got to be, off for 2 weeks for, I don't know, a goddamn vaginal rejuvenation or something, or he's going on vacation or whatever. But it looked like they just shoehorned him in this specifically to say, okay, if you touch anybody, you're going to get suspended. And within an hour and 40 minutes, he had touched somebody and got suspended. Did he add anything in your mind to the color of the program, to the color commentary, I should say?
I'm not a big Owens fan, but I think if you are, you probably enjoyed it.
Okay, let me ask you this. Do you think that color commentary, for a glib guy that can talk, they're not the identical skills, wrestling, talking, commentary? And can we cross Kevin Owens off the list of people who will make transitions to color commentators to get other people over and actually talk about the issues and look and sound like a broadcaster?
I don't know. I mean, there's a long history of French Canadians that you wouldn't expect being on commentary. Pat Patterson, Ray Rougeau, just people that you're like, wow, they're going to be the commentator. And then the fans went banana.
I think that's one of those traditions that died with Vince's full control. But nevertheless, he came out wearing a cheap tie with his T-shirt. And I just had flashbacks to this was the guy that thought that my booking in Ring of Honor was cheesy. But now that he's in the land of ha-ha and cashing a big check, he shuts up and goes with the flow. It looked ridiculous, but nevertheless, see, that's, again, Kevin Owens is not a handsome Jimmy Valiant. We played that audio here recently on your program, where you would believe he was crazy, and yes, he is crazy, and we like him crazy. Owens is just pretend crazy, and he suddenly found an anger management problem after, 10 years in the company, but all of a sudden now he just wants to fight all the time. Nevertheless, speaking of people that want to fight all the time instead of party all the time, and Eddie Murphy would have never sounded so good if it wasn't for Rick James. Rey Mysterio and the LWO come to the ring, and Rey's story is that he wouldn't have lost the U.S. title to Logan Paul if not for the brass knuckles. And Logan Paul stole my title. He couldn't have beat me without the knucks, and everybody knows it. And there he's standing there with Escobar and the other two Lucha fellows and Zelina. And remember when this first started, to help me, Brian, I can't remember a plot twist, but when it first started with Escobar being involved with, Escobar was a heel previously, but then he got involved with Rey Mysterio, and they established a mutual respect. And what at the time I speculated on when they were building this was, it looks like, because Vince always wants to have a Hispanic hero, that they are trying to establish an alliance between Escobar and Mysterio, that maybe Rey will pass the torch to this guy. But he doesn't have the flash and the pizzazz and the zing-zang of Rey Mysterio. But then, as they went on a little bit, it looked like more that they were going to build dissension. And over the past several weeks, that has been borne out when it just so happened, he said a couple things. It just so happened he left the Knucks right where they would be available for Logan Paul or his stooges or whatever. So Rey is blaming the Logan Paul and his Knucks, but Carlito comes out, and Carlito is basically like, say it, put the blame where it belongs. It's his fault, and points at Escobar, because Carlito is the new addition to this. You know what? They used to want comedy writers. I think, honestly, they've gotten soap opera writers now, because it's more dramatic than it used to be. It used to be just silly. Carlito's the new addition to the group, and he don't have a history with Escobar, and he's just looking at what's in front of his face. And have you also noticed that when Carlito was in OVW in 2004, he was probably in the lower 30% of size of guys. And he's a high flyer. He looks like Andre next to everybody in this fucking ring. And so basically, when Carlito and Escobar get in an argument, Escobar walks out. He doesn't have to stand around and put up with this. So we've seen something. There's going to be something happen between Escobar and Mysterio for the past several weeks. But I like that Carlito, the new guy, maybe that's what they held him back for. Remember, they thought they were going to sign him, or said they were going to sign him, or maybe they did sign him earlier this year after the Puerto Rico show. And then he sat around for a while. Maybe they had this in their back pocket. Are they more prepared than they used to be, and that was sometimes we thin they are, Brian?
I don't know. I mean, I'm curious about your reaction to all of this. I mean, I don't want to spoil what we're going to talk about in a few moments, but it came across to me watching it like this innocent, nice guy, Escobar, has this new guy show up and just start calling him out when he did nothing but try to help his friend. I said it the other day, this guy's been the greatest friend anyone could have. And all of a sudden, Carlito starts calling him out. It escalated from that to a complete heel turn kind of fast when Carlito seems like the heel here. So
it anchormaned. It escalated rapidly.
This guy's the greatest friend. He's doing everything he can to help Rey Mysterio. He's got like a smile on his face.
Well, but a couple of times everything hadn't been good enough and it didn't work out. Things kind of backfired.
Should the other members have walked out with him?
Because they were his before they were Rey's.
And they know what's going on. I mean, again, if you're staying there, are you agreeing with what Carlito is saying?
Apparently they did. But we don't know yet.
Rey hasn't watched the video. Rey hasn't said, hey man, look, shit happens. I understand.
Well, I think that's what he was trying to say, but he didn't get to it because Carlito interrupted him. But it was kind of, it was careless, if nothing else, for Escobar to put the brass knuckles right down there on the ring, right in front of God and everybody, where Logan Paul could see.
It was careless. He's the babyface to me. He does nothing but try to help his friends. This new kid shows up at school, steals all of his friends, points out to everyone that he's a jerk for being a nice guy and making a mistake. I'm on his side.
Well, see, you're in grade school now, and we're not talking about AEW. We're not there yet. But let's say it's a gang fight on the street amongst adults.
Right.
Okay, Escobar was chasing one of Logan Paul's stooges. He had a set of brass knuckles in his hand. If he's chasing a guy to beat him up, why'd he put the brass knuckles down? Uh-huh.
Now you
can't mean he didn't want to make something happen and then deny responsibility.
Oh, no. You can get on him for being a putz, for making bad decisions. Maybe we're not going to give you the knucks again.
I think he's the Mexican Dr. Evil. He's the master plotter around here. He's thinking 3 steps ahead.
Medico Evil?
That's right. Medico Evolo.
Evolo. Okay.
Evolo.
You didn't take Spanish in school, did you?
I left it. I didn't take it.
Did you take any language in school? You've never talked about that.
I took several tongue lashings. and there was some language directed at me that I don't know if it's specific to any country or not. I did a bit of German because that
really?
Because honestly, when I was a kid and I watched Hogan's Heroes, I already had like 4 words. And that was 4 more than I had in any other language. So, yes.
What were the options? French,
I can't remember. It's
German?
been 50 fucking years. I can't.
You don't remember that? I remember that.
I think they still had Latin.
Wow.
But anyway, so Carlito is still there because he's going to wrestle old Bobby Lashley. Now that we've got the dramatic part of the LWO story out, and Carlito and Lashley, it was a good TV match with 2 professionals, but this is the WWE, so they had a match, not much to review there, and we'll skip to the next part of the angle, where the Street Profits got involved, and Escobar came back out and beat up the Street Profits to try to keep them from interfering, but when he did, Carlito was distractified, and Lashley speared Carlito and beat him 1, 2, 3. So at that point, the Profits and Lashley get on Carlito, and they're kicking the shit out of him, and Escobar just stands there and watches. Like, well, goddamn, I guess I got to do everything. Should I help this guy or not?
Why did he even run out there? Why did he go out there in the first place?
Well, because he had to be there to be standing there. So
you know what I mean.
This question.
You know what I mean.
Well, see, that's the thing. He came out and he beat up the Stooges, and then Carlito loses the match. And he's standing there like, what the fuck do I got to do? Everything now I got to fight these 3 guys again.
But why would he help Carlito? Carlito's the guy who just called him out.
Because he was trying to show he was a team player. But see, since he's Dr. Evil, he's really thinking 3 steps ahead because he knew that if he beat those guys up on the floor, that Lashley would beat Carlito, and then he'd get to see Carlito lose, and then he could say, well, I tried. But then when they started beating Carlito up some more, then he was like, well, shit, what do I do now? Because I'm really enjoying watching them kick the shit out of this guy. But I thought I had a cover story here when suddenly here came Rey Mysterio. And the heels bailed out anyway. And then Rey and Escobar argued with each other over whether Carlito is part of the familia. And Rey says, we're all familia. But apparently he wasn't familiar with the idea of not turning your back on the goddamn guy that's about to turn on you, because Escobar attacked Rey Mysterio from behind and walloped him with a rabbit punch. And then Rey bowed back up, and it's like he slapped Escobar with out an open hand palm strikes in the face twice, and Escobar kind of stagger bumped through the ropes to the apron, shocked, like, oh my God, he hit me back. And then Rey, with his body language, portrayed, even though he has a mask on, portrayed that, oh, I feel sorry for what I've done. And he steps out on the apron so he can apologize to Escobar, who then shoves Rey backwards into the fucking ring post and drops him down crotch first on the ring stairs, and then kicks the ring stairs into Mysterio's leg, trying to cripple him, and then tells Mysterio, you made me do this. You made me do. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to. You made me crotch you, and all the time you knew it. And he said, you had it coming. So, boy, I'll tell you, I don't know how you can take this guy's side with a treacherous attack like that.
You made me crotch you. You had it coming. No, of course not. You had it coming. I'm still on his side. Like, again, why's Rey getting on it? Like, why is everyone picking on this guy? This guy's been nothing but a nice guy.
He fucking clobbered him from behind.
After they pushed him past the point where he couldn't take it.
Rey shoved him. Rey shoved him back. Said, get away from the man now. Here, what are you doing?
Yeah, Rey,
and then he went to comfort and console poor old fucking Carlito there when Escobar came, and he just lowered the boom.
Again, it's like the fucking Karate Kid. The new kid came to school. All of a sudden now my friends are helping him? Him? So now I'm on his side now. He maybe...
Wasn't that a Rupert Holmes song that didn't make it him?
Oh, I don't know.
He did the Pina Colada song, and the world was his oyster. And then he crapped in his fucking punch bowl with him, and it was gone.
All right, well, he did the Pina Colada song, and then everyone thought Jimmy Buffett did it for the rest of his life. But whenever we're talking... Oh, Escobar.
All right.
Yeah, I'm on Escobar's side. I mean, he took it too far. Maybe we're trying to cut off Rey's leg with the crotching of with the metal stair. I don't know what he was trying to do exactly. I mean, it escalated very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, very, very quickly. He had the biggest smile on his face clapping at Rey earlier in the night.
A lot of these things are like everything's fine and joy and love in the air. And then you say, I really thought your meatballs were too spicy. And the woman fires up a chainsaw and cuts his leg off.
So everyone's in the ring earlier for the thing where he storms off. Carlito needs help. Only Escobar shows up to help him. And then this whole thing with Rey and Escobar. Where are the other members?
Well, then they suddenly realized that nobody can remember their names, nobody knows why they're there, and nobody wants to see them anymore.
Wouldn't it be amazing?
They just told them to stay in the back.
Wouldn't it be amazing if that's the way they write them off? You'll be there for the first part, and then we're just going to kind of move past that.
Next week, they announce, ladies and gentlemen, Frick and Frack over there, they couldn't decide whose side they were on, so they're staying neutral until this is settled. They've gone to a retreat.
You know what else is funny, too? This past week, Mattel Creations, the division of Mattel that makes like various toys that are sold direct to consumer as opposed to going into stores. They do a lot of wrestling stuff.
Yeah.
They just announced an LWO box set celebrating the Puerto Rico show because Zelina has the big flag on her arms and it has the other smiling members with Rey. They just announced it.
it still works because they'll just get one of those stickers like you used to add over a poster misprint or whatever. Sticker at the bottom, in happier times.
Comes with Carlito Afro head. You could just stick on the body of Escobar, replace him.
Actually, that's a Chia Pet concept they're trying to work on for 2024. Back to SmackDown. So they had a VTR from the Crown Jewel event about Bayley's group, the Bayley Bunch, and the women's title. And out comes Bayley for a live in-ring interview. And I'm like, seriously at this point, because I've mentioned in the past, Bayley could talk when she's got something to say and motivated. For one of the female talents, she's a talker, but my God, there's so much talk. And the people in the building may have felt the same way because they whatted her until they got her. Did you see that part, or were you even paying attention to this?
I was in and out.
They whatted her until they got her, and she started trying to fire back at them. Yeah, that's right. Just like, oh, you stupid people say what? And then they knew you could see on her face, well, I've lost this fucking fight. And then she called out Io Sky and Dakota Sky and the new girl, Carrie Insane.
No, she's not new. She was there before.
Well, she's back again.
She's returned.
And they all came out to Montrose. They all came out to the ring. It's a musical day. And they all tried to start talking in turn. Io tries to speak, and then they showed a VTR from the past of them fighting with each other, and then they went back to the ring for another long promo. Carrie Insane tried to speak.
Her name's Carrie Sane. What did you think of the idea that Bayley is like, you want to know why I have a problem? Look at this. And all of a sudden she cues the video.
Yes.
What do you think of that?
Well, it's not
her, but just any wrestler just cueing the video.
No, I would bring that up, except there's a much more egregious example on AEW this week. So I was going to save the preposterosity of the... I know it's fucking 2023 and we've got modern technology, but they're pressing me on some of these things. But that's the point. They're pitched their own shit. Then finally, everybody hugged. Nobody turned. They had issues with each other. But then they settled them and everybody hugged. And then Bianca's music played. And I'm like, well, what the fuck? Now there's more. And it's already been a while.
She didn't skip.
She didn't skip because she had to stick to the entranceway because she was mad at them and wanted to cut a promo on them, but she couldn't get in the ring of four of them. But then she brought out Charlotte, and then she brought out Oscar, and they set up a 6-woman tag team match for later tonight. And by the time start to finish, that was a 12 minutes on Fox network television. That the information could have been imparted some way in about a third of the time is what I got out of this. And that's pretty much all I got out of it. Did you get any more out of it?
Well, they were eating up a lot of time, and there were also a lot of people not on the show, so they had to take the people they did have and eat up as much time as possible.
Well, they were eating it like Ms. Pac-Man, I'll tell you that.
You prefer Ms. Pac-Man to Pac-Man?
Well, at least if I'm gonna be eaten, I'd rather it be by a female.
I meant gameplay, but
well, it depends on what trips your trigger, pal. Any kind of game you want to play. Games people play. You take them or you leave them. Things that they say just don't make it right. Dragon Lee wrestled Cedric Alexander.
And it was better than your singing.
Well, that's not saying much.
You admit it.
Wait a minute. That didn't work for me, did it? All right. So at the 9 o'clock hour, yes, that's the first hour of the program.
Wait, you didn't watch that? That ended up actually being a fun match.
Yes, it's a fun match, and it's a good match amongst two people that are never going to draw 15 cents in Chinese money. They couldn't draw a greasy string out of a cat's ass. They couldn't draw money if you gave them paper and green crayons. They couldn't draw money if you dipped them in glue and drug them through Fort Knox. Should I go on?
But they may be able to get their hands on some crypto is my point. And I don't think Cedric's going to be able to draw money, but They see something in
liked
Dragon
Cedric
Lee.
in the hurt business. We liked Cedric. He was part of the group. Now he's doing jobs for everybody and their brother. And whatever they see in Dragon Lee,
he's the brother.
The other brother?
No, he's the brother. Who's his brother? He's the brother of Roosh.
Who's a brother? I'm a brother. You're a brother.
No, Dragon Lee is the brother of Roosh and another wrestler, and I forget who.
Good for him. And the next time that you think he's going to main event WrestleMania, let me know. I'm here to see the stars, and the stars don't wrestle, they talk. So that's a clue right there. If he's wrestling on his program, you don't want to see him. He's a flunky. You want to wait till the acting starts again, Brian, don't you? How long have you been a wrestling fan?
So you'll pay attention to Dragon Lee once he starts cutting promos on someone else after a few weeks?
There you go. Let's hear him talk. Because is Rush the one that couldn't say suey if the hogs had him?
No, you're thinking of Andrade.
No, I know he can't, but there's another one that had to be subtitled.
Oh, no, Rush was subtitled, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on, now I got to see who the other brother is. Hold on. Dragon. That's not how you spell
Daryl is the other brother.
I know, I just wrote fucking Dragon. That's what came up.
Daryl Lee.
Lee, other brother.
Other brother, Daryl.
Roosh is the second person to you. Well, that doesn't really answer me. Dragon Lee, his brothers. How come it doesn't just have a list of his family here? What the fuck?
Who are his brothers from another mother?
His brothers are. He's a second generation wrestler. So there's
So his brother is another generation than he is? Did his brother have relations with his mother?
His father, before you get me too confused, was La Bestia del Ring, and he is the second person to call himself Dragon Lee, the first one being his older brother Carlos, who now wrestles under the name Drolistico, and he has another brother, William, who works under the name Roosh. Rush's real name is William?
William?
It is. William Arturo Munoz Gonzalez.
Well, now here's a question. Did the Smothers brothers have any other brothers? Or was their mother determined not to have another brother after she had the Smothers brothers?
All right, well.
See, these are things we need to know.
Listen, not too many wrestling podcasts transition from Roosh and family to the Smothers brothers. But we are back with the Smothers Brothers comedy hour of Wrestling Smackdown.
That's because Mom always liked me best. So at the 9 o'clock hour, who comes out? With everybody saying it, L.A. Knight. Big reaction, chance. He knows how to... The milkman, L.A. Knight, no longer is Jake Milliman the milkman. Now L.A. Knight is the milkman. He is the preeminent milker in the wrestling world today. He just stares at them and they know it. The way he looks at them, they know which thing to say or what to do. When he makes his hand gesture, they even know the cadence. Because it's simple. And what did Gary Hart say, Brian, so many times? Repetition is the key when dealing with goofs. If you do the same thing, and it's simple, and you do it over and over, and they like it, they'll pick up on it. And they showed the video of him at Crown Jewel with Roman Reigns. And Brian, was it Freudian or subliminal, or is he just on the cordyceps? Or it was obvious that he was wearing Hulkamania red and yellow, and that's his gear and his new t-shirt. Were we getting a little subliminal message like, these are the colors, you must worship him? Are they getting into it that deep now these days, or you think it was a coincidence?
I don't know. I want to dismiss that because it sounds crazy, but the fact that you said it means that it may be real.
That was Hulkamania colors bigger than Christmas, wasn't it? The exact shades.
I mean, yellow and red, and of course he started...
But the exact shades of those yellow and red.
I don't know exactly which yellow they used for the
Well,
yellow.
It wasn't magenta or fuchsia.
No, but you're a fan of most of the colors, as we've learned.
I do like most colors. All righty, so L.A. Knight Folks, you got to listen to all the shows. This stuff would be so much funnier. It couldn't be less. He's not apologizing for anything. Cutting the promo. He's not going to come out there and, I'm sorry, I didn't do it. He had Roman Reigns. Jimmy Uso's the one that saved him. Give Jimmy Uso a raise, Roman, because if not for him, I would have been the champion. Your ass was toast. Everything that a kick-ass babyface should say about a loss that legitimately he was cheated out of. And he also refuses to go to the back of the line. You've heard that one. Well, I'm going to start all over you. Fuck you. I'm not going to go to the back of the line, and I'm not done with the bloodline. I'm going to be all up in their fucking business. And that was a good promo, a good attitude to take, good stance to take, because he's still going to be in the mix. And then, of course, I was like, I wrote seriously at this, but as he's done that, LA Knight has, then they play Grayson Waller music. And I'm like, oh my God. And Brian, they have given Grayson Waller, and it's not like in the WWE, not anymore. Back in the old days it happened, but not anymore. Do you just go out and get your sister-in-law to make you some gear, right? They have seamstresses and costume makers and costume creative services will draw you up diagrams. We've seen many of the leaked ones in the past. And they will make shit for you. So this is obviously not some do-it-yourself shit that he's done, or, you know, a friend gave him this to wear on television. They have given him gear that makes, and I didn't think this was possible, his fucking rotten physique look even worse. He looked, when he was wrestling, like he was wearing a fucking miniskirt with sequins around the top. Did you see this space alien outfit they had him wearing?
The fact that he has no physique, like you said, is surprising considering who makes it in WWE, but then I agree with you. He has no physique, and then he has awful gear, and the gear does nothing to lend itself to the physique, so it just doesn't look good at all.
I was trying to figure out it looked like if somebody bought a gag marital aid and then made a sequined fucking snood to slip it into. It would just... So anyway, LA Knight, by the way, called him Kangaroo Jackass, said the Grayson Waller effect sounded like an STD. And the guy that got dropped by an actor in Saudi Arabia is asking him if LA Knight belongs in the ring with Roman Reigns, when Grayson Waller looked like he was ready to have school pictures taken, but he's not allowed within 50 yards of a school. So they're giving LA Knight a little room to fucking be not exactly PG on some of these yahoos.
Is that what happens when you get yourself over with your promo?
That's kind of what happens, I think. And he set up the crowds doing the LA Knight and timed it where he could punch Waller in the head with the microphone on the night, which was hilarious. And then he beat up Grayson Waller and left. And, you know, and there's going to be more. They're going to come back and there's going to be more. But let's talk about this for a second. Again, LA Knight didn't come out there and be the, you know, sniveling, well, I'm sorry I didn't do this for all you fans, babyface. And he fired up and he said he wasn't going anywhere. And then he pretty much makes a complete idiot out of this complete idiot. So far, I think they're doing the right thing, and they're smartly not going to let him cool off like they just, you know, blew some fucking nitrous up his ass for the match with Roman, and now they're going to ease up on it. They're still got confidence in LA Knight, it would seem to me from this.
Yeah, I guess that was my big question for you. Does it feel to you like he's been hurt at all by the loss?
I don't think so, because the people still loved him, and the majority of them, they had a package, they saw it on the screen if they didn't see the crown jewel show, they know he got screwed, and they wanted to hear him come out and say, I'm not going to put up with this, and I'm not going to fucking go to the back of the line, and everybody else can kiss my ass. What would they have wanted to hear Steve Austin say 20 years ago? Same thing they want to hear him say, LA Knight say now, which was that. And then they want to, remember how I've said so many times, not only on the WWE programs in the past, but also with the AEW shows, you just beat this guy in a high-profile match, get him back on television, let him talk, and give him a good win, no matter who it is, if it's a main event guy. And that's what they did here. They got him back on TV. They got him talking. He's about to get a good win. Unfortunately, it just had to be against the kangaroo jackass, Grayson Waller. And that's, I guess, if he's going to be on television, I guess he can do some jobs, but good Lord, that's the one thing I can see right now, well, besides Gargano, is who in the world in that company is a proponent of Grayson Waller. And I guess they're going to use him until he finds a new line of work, which can't come quick enough. As a matter of fact, Brian, I think we ought to encourage Grayson Waller to find a new line of work, a new way to make money, a new way to support himself and his kangaroo farm over there in fucking Queensland.
Okay, I don't know if he has a farm of kangaroos. I don't know what he could really do with that, but what ideas do you have, Jim?
Well, I'm thinking maybe he can sell kangaroos online. All he's got to do is set up an online store.
Well, maybe setting up an online store and selling kangaroo kind of merchandise is one thing. I don't know about the trade of kangaroos on the computer.
I think they're cute. They look cute. It could be a trend. Kangaroos online. Direct from Grayson Waller, the guy that you saw wash out as a WWE superstar, now will sell you your very own kangaroo.
Roos for you.
All you got to do, roos for you. There you go. It's not even shoes for your feet, pockets for your stuff. It's just roos for you.
The original ruse.
You'll rue the day you got our ruse. And that's all. And that way Grayson Waller is off our television, and he's got a secure line of employment that has a big future. He'll make a ton of money. He can support his family. All he's got to do is set up his online e-commerce platform. That could be a daunting task to many of the laymen out there. A lot of people, Brian, I know you'll find this hard to believe, and not a lot of the people are an expert in technology such as myself. But, of course, I've learned at the feet of the Featherbottoms.
Oh, come on.
And Will Hotchkiss Featherbottom, the man who invented the email blast.
No.
The man who invented the blind carbon copy on the email. I haven't even told you about that.
No, you did tell me about that. He did not invent that.
Well, I'm telling you he did.
I'm telling you he did.
A number of things. No, and as a matter of fact, now Shopify is taking all the things that Hotchkiss Featherbottom invented, and they're launching them into the future because they're a big company. He's a small business merchant. He likes to do everything personally, but Shopify, well, they're the global leaders, the global force behind Brooklinen and Rothy's and Allbirds. If they can sell birds, they can certainly sell kangaroos. And millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries in this. As a matter of fact, are there 175 countries in the world, or are they in all of the countries on this world and several countries on another planet? I think they're in more countries than we have.
There are 195 countries currently in the world.
Oh, 20 of you are shit out of luck. But Shopify powers 10% of all the e-commerce in the United States. And you can sell more with less efforts thanks to Shopify Magic, which is your Al-powered all-star. Apparently, Al Kaline,
AI,
Major League ball player who was an all-star, is now powering Shopify Magic. Al-powered.
First of all, it's AI. Second of all, I can't believe you know who Al Kaline is.
Oh, he was a fine friend of the family.
What team was he on?
He was up there in New York.
No, he wasn't.
Or somewhere around. Well, that's when we last saw him. He was probably on vacation. The man worked himself half to death. Anyway, you don't have to sell just your own stuff anymore. If you get your e-commerce platform and you sell all of your goods, and boy, some of you people have some goods, and I've been sold a bill of goods before, but with Shopify Collective, you can actually sell other people's stuff. You can curate products to sell from the brands that you love, and then I guess you just steal them from these other people.
No.
And you turn around and sell them like they're your own.
No, that is not the way it works. There will be no theft.
Shopify Collective will tell you all about how to do it.
Yes.
Yes. And you can grow your average order value with the Shopify Bundles app, where you can create and sell product bundles with ease. You can just take all kinds of shit that's unrelated to each other, just wrap it up in plastic or cloth or maybe tape, make a big bundle out of it, and say, look here, surprise packages, on sale, $5 a piece. People see the size of that thing. They go, oh, fuck, it's got to be worth $5. That's the way we always did it. Shopify is your no excuses business partner. If Shopify doesn't come into work one day, they're not going to call you with some kind of Who Shot John story about how the alarm didn't go off or there's a flat tire on the car. They're just going to say, I ain't coming in today. No excuses. That's the way a business partner should work.
You don't have to worry about Shopify ever not being there. That's one of the wonderful things. You have your online store. You don't have to worry about it. You have 24/7 Shopify support.
Well, that's true. They don't have to come there because they're everywhere. Shopify is like an invisible, supernatural, supreme being that is everywhere, including in the air because of the Wi-Fi. And they will customize your online store to your own style because they have gorgeous, hot, and flexible templates and powerful tools to use on them. Wouldn't you love to see somebody use a powerful tool on Hot and Flexible? I'm telling you, right, you could whip up captivating content that converts from blog posts to product descriptions. You can generate instant FAQ answers. FAQ, FAQua.
Wouldn't you like the FAQ Hot and Flexible?
Like FAQ out? Yeah, I'm telling you, Shopify will do if you want to sell shit on the internet, even if it's, some of that black market stuff, like the mushrooms.
No.
The cordyceps.
A million, cordyceps only through reputable sources like Woo Energy. No,
well,
anything illegal will not be supported by Spotify. Shopify.
If you're auctioning autographed apparel or you're selling sleek skis, they help you sell everywhere because that's what you need. No matter what size your business is, you need to be bigger, but you need a platform that you can stand on. And that's why we're telling you this right now and all these other things that we've told you, because now you can see that Shopify is the single thing that you need in your life to make everything swell. You don't need drugs. You don't need alcohol. You don't need religion. You don't need a family or friends. You just need Shopify and their single dashboard that can manage orders, shipping, and payments from anywhere. So you sign up with Shopify and people all over the world just instantly start sending you money for something or other. They'll figure it out and they'll send you part of it. And you get paid.
I don't think you have any idea how any of this works. Once again, if you have an online store,
yes,
this is a great way to run your online store.
Yeah.
With Shopify.
And you can pick who you want to come into your store, too, because for heaven's sake, you reserve the right. No shirt, no shoes, no service. If these people don't get dressed up with shoes and a shirt on and take a bath before they order at your online store, you have the right to reserve service to them. It's all thanks to Shopify knowing everything about everybody. They're hooked up with the internet service providers, I believe. That's how this whole thing works.
I don't know.
Well, we'll find out because right now you can sign up for a $1 a month trial period. Fuck, you ought to need to find out everything you need to know in the course of a month, right? Sign up for a $1 a month trial period at shopify.com/JCE, which is all lowercase. Now, not the shopify.com, but the /JCE. JCE would be in all lowercase. because we're going to a higher court if they don't take our appeal. So go to shopify.com/JCE now to grow your business from a little tiny seedling into a giant, throbbing, bulbous concern. Shopify.com/JCE. This is all you're going to hear, baby.
That's right.
Over and over.
Until you press mute.
In your dreams, in your nightmares, you'll lay awake at night hearing, until finally you'll say, take this money away from me. I don't want any more money. I got too much money. I can't stand all the money. Money, money, money.
We'll make money with your business with Shopify. What's that promo code one more time, Jim?
In lowercase letters, for whatever reason. As a matter of fact, we know it's important because they put all lowercase in capital letters. JCE. Shopify.com/JCE. So, getting back to SmackDown. So we came back from the commercial break, and you'll never guess what happened, Brian. Well, of course you will, because you watched the program, or part of it. LA Knight versus Grayson Waller is already transpiring. And visually, it looked like LA Knight doing an indie show against the promoter's son, didn't it? I mean, he looks big time. The broadcast, the production looks big time, and there it looks like that they've gotten an extra from one of the local promotions and decided to let him go 10 minutes with the top guy.
I don't understand it. And you said someone has to support him. You have to believe it's Shawn Michaels and Triple H. He's on the main roster. He came up through NXT, but it's not doing it for me.
But finally, Grayson Waller missed a shitty elbow drop off the ropes where it looked like he was trying it for the first time and made up how to fall in midair. And LA Knight made his comeback. He had to tell Mr. Waller what to do a time or two. And then as Waller was coming off the ropes, he was supposed to go up for LA Knight's scoop power slam, but his timing was off, and LA Knight got under him and got him turned, but I've seen him do 250-pound guys easier than this one. And then he hit the LA elbow and his finish, the blunt force trauma. 1, 2, 3. So, that was it. They did the right thing in that Waller is a heel that they're using for whatever inexplicable reason at a fairly good level that can also get beat without really giving a shit. It doesn't take any heat off of him because he doesn't really have any productive heat. And LA Knight gets a good win, but just if you don't want to see any Waller, but you do love LA Knight, it was a struggle in your mind.
I have nothing to add to the struggle.
Well, if you're not adding to the struggle, then you're part of the solution. We don't want that. So they played a classic moment that's the way that old saying goes, isn't it? If you're not part of the struggle, you're part of the solution. They had a classic moment from 2002 with John Cena debuting against Kurt Angle. And yeah, I know it's a sponsored spot and it's 20 years of SmackDown or whatever the fuck, but shouldn't they just put at the bottom in subtitles, remember when all of our stars were bigger? Because you look at the crowd and you look at the guys and you look at the reactions and then they went to the VTR from Crown Jewel of just this past week where John Cena, 21 years later, got the shit kicked out of him by Solo. And that's good placement there because at least, and the strike is over. It doesn't look like John's ever going to get even with Solo, does it? I hate to see.
We'll see.
I hate to see evil like that go unpunished. And so does the Hayes office. So then we got what we had been being milked on all night in that Kevin Owens was informed by Nick Aldis that if he got physical with anybody during his stint as a color commentator that he would be suspended. So he's been razzing Waller all night on commentary, and they played the tape of a few weeks ago when Owens knocked both Waller and Theory out with one punch and blah, blah, blah. And here comes Waller and Theory, and they come out to harass Owens. And they know that he can't get physical, so they fuck with him, and they pour water over his head. And he ignored that, but then apparently they threw the empty water bottle at the English announcer. What's his name? Good Lord.
Philip?
Prince Philip?
Nigel?
No, that's the other show.
Caleb?
Hotchkiss Worthington Smythe? Nevertheless, so basically Owens said, I got to go get suspended. So he jumped up and attacked them both and stunnered Waller, and Theory bailed out. And now apparently Owens is suspended. Maybe he just needed a couple of weeks off for some type of cosmetic surgery. Maybe he's having a belly lift or something.
Belly lift?
Well, you know, because he's got that furniture disease where his chest is in his drawers. But anyway, so then the main event came around.
Sometimes you still hit me with shit I've never heard before.
Oh, I can't believe you haven't heard. Anyway, Damage Control, a.k.a. the Bailey Bunch, wrestled Bianca and Charlotte and Oscar. And this was the six-man tag main event, six-woman tag. 6 men and 3 people and whatever that fucking line is you fucked up. And the finish of this thing, let's get to the meat of the matter. Oscar started short-arming Bianca Belair on the tag. The old short-arm deal. Oh, I'm really trying to reach you, but I don't really want to. And then she basically just misted her and then got in and hugged the Bailey Bunch, and they all beat up Charlotte. So now Oscar has become a charter member of the Baileys, and they got the baby faces down because Oscar's on their side. Bianca's been misted. They're kicking the shit out of Charlotte. Shotzi comes in, but they beat her up too. But then Bianca got back up because I guess now the mist only takes about 30 or 45 seconds to clear out of your eyes. But she got back up, but they stopped her again, and all 5 of the heels stood over the 3 baby faces, and it looked like going off the air with the wild pandemonium heat beat down. It looked like an episode of Mid-South Wrestling if it was shot in a girls' reform school. And that's what happened there. Did I miss any of the nuances of the main event?
Maybe the only nuance is just that Asuka and Kairi Sane have a history together, so it's not like she just suddenly joins all of them, her and...
Well, I'm sure they do, because after they're Japanese, so naturally they have to know each other, right?
No, they were...
Racist mind of the WWE.
No, they were a team. They were actually a team in WWE, remember? Kairi with the umbrella, spinning the umbrella?
No, I don't. I know that, as Ricky Morton used to say, I've taken pills bigger than she is. I don't know that she's as big as a hiccup. She makes the other girls look big, and they're small. And they're thin, and they're frail. What's going on here? Well, that was Smackdown. What'd you think about the Smackdown, Brian, overall?
I mean, the big thing was the Escobar angle, but even that, the way they did it is just so questionable.
They're winning this war handily, going away now, by boring us to tears and making 1 or 2 things per program memorable. Maybe there's a lesson there. Simplicity, less is more.
It's the way it always was. I mean, best case scenario, that's the way it was. Usually, unless it was sweeps, we got nothing but squash matches and local promos. We didn't get main event matches in WWF back then. But like every season, you would get like all of a sudden like 3 weeks in a row of main event matches, and then nothing but squash matches.
And of course, and we had to walk to school both ways in the snow uphill.
All right, well, like you said, that was SmackDown.
Well, should we jump in and talk a little bit about the other programming on AEW this week? Because I would like to think that this is just their way of saying, all right, fuck it, we're just going to throw our hands up and quit and just honor the commitments that we have and then fold this thing up and go find something else to do. But I think they're still they think they're trying, don't they? They think this is going to work.
They're definitely trying, and they definitely think they're trying. Whether it's going to work or whether anyone believes it's going to work is another story, but I think a lot of people there are doing the best they can to make the best of a situation that should be better.
To make it great. To make the great matches and the great talent and the great show even greater, right? According to Tony. They have now decided to forego. Remember when they were really competitive, like with NXT, when they were on the same night, they wanted to start the program out. Boom, they're starting. The guys are already in the ring. They ring the bell. They got action. They don't want people to have a chance to turn away before they see some kind of chaos, right? Now they just said, fuck it. They do one camera shoots of a backstage interview with multiple people walking in and out or being involved that goes on for 3 or 4 minutes at a time before they even go to the show open. And it gives plenty of people the opportunity to go, what the fuck is this? And so they've gone completely the other way because they think, and unfortunately, to some extent, they may be right, that the only person that anybody's going to tune in this program specifically to see anymore is MJF. So they're going to involve him in everything, put him at the start, put him in the middle, put him at the end. Give me dirty laundry. Kick him when they're up, kick him when he's down. And this was, good Lord, it's MJF, the biggest star in the company, interacting with mid-card and underneath talent and or talking about shit that nobody can believe. And it's all orchestrated to where it's obviously fucking set up, manipulated, written, fake, whatever. I will briefly give you the first 3 or 4 minutes of this program, and then, Brian, you can comment on it. Tony Schiavone's in the back with MJF talking about last week he got beat by Jay White. That's a big deal, right? The world champion, the first time we can remember him getting pinned in ages, and he gets pinned against the guy that up until this program aired, I believed he was going to wrestle, already announced for sure on the pay-per-view. But he barely comments about that, and he gets a phone call on the phone in his pocket, and he reaches down and grabs it. Oh, it's Adam. And Tony Schiavone says, well, put it up on the monitor. Within 3 seconds, he has answered the phone and put the video up on a television monitor that he's standing next to. Is that even possible, Brian, with the smartphones of today in that amount of time? And can that connection be made? And how the fuck would you send something to a TV monitor that still requires you to be plugged into the truck to get any kind of picture on anything? If I'm going to inside baseball on TV here, help me.
Well, it was very quick, but if the TV had a Chromecast or a Amazon Fire Stick, or
no, that wasn't a TV, it's a monitor.
Well, even the monitor, there's some kind of thing hooked up to it via USB. He could do it. I don't think it would be that quick.
It has to be sent from the truck. Every TV monitor I've ever seen and every television production I've ever did couldn't just fucking pick shit up over the air or get television stations. It's a goddamn monitor that is either a line feed or a monitor of an E&G location crew. But you got to plug something into it to feed it. Whatever the fuck. And then 3 seconds. So Adam Cole with lousy audio and video, and he still looks like shit. He either hasn't bathed since last week or they shot it at the same time last week's was shot. He tells MJF that he needs to take Joe up on his offer to be MJF's partner to defend the Ring of Honor tag team titles. They're opening the show 10 days out from a pay-per-view with the world champion talking about defending secondary tag team titles against secondary fucking talent on the goddamn undercard. And then when MJF doesn't want to take Joe, but Garcia and the two Jericho appreciators walk in, and Garcia and MJF argue about their match that they're going to have tonight because MJF is defending the world title against Daniel Garcia. Which is like, who was goddamn World Series champions this year, Brian?
This year that the Texas Rangers.
That's like the Texas Rangers defending their World Series title against me. And they start talking about, and MJF is giving him the pitch where I believe in you. And he's firing him up to do his best. And he wants to see the pro wrestler, not the sports entertainer. So you've got MJF the devil. 6 months ago, he would have said, I want to see you in an oxygen tank, on an iron lung, with broken legs. I don't want you to be at your best. I want you to be as bad as you can be so I can beat you more easily. But they're having him do bullshit about the babyface seeing something in this fucking Garcia that couldn't... He can't draw any money. You could take his face and cut you some gorilla cookies. But this guy's another one of these nice guys that can do moves like a monkey. And that's why they're trying to push him. So then those heels leave. But then you hear Adam. And it's Roddy with the wheelchair and the neck brace and Taven and Bennett the Stooges. And now you see, as they widen the shot out, Adam is still on the screen. And Roddy is trying to offer tips to MJF on how to beat or do whatever. And MJF walks out on Roddy because he don't like him, so Roddy is pissed, and Adam hangs up. This was minutes and minutes long of just contrived horseshit back and forth with talent that either isn't going to draw any money in this situation, MJF, or has been made to be so silly and marginalized that they ain't. Fucking Garcia, fucking Roddy, Taven, Bennett, or just the flunkies that who gives a shit to begin with. That was the open of the show, and then we went right into the world title match with Garcia and MJF. And again, I love MJF's work, but this is ridiculous. The guy's not over. He's not going to get over here. If it's a great match that shows what Garcia can do, it's worse. Better for Garcia, better for Garcia's immediate family. Worse for the company and the world champion. It was like taking Bret Hart 15 minutes to beat the Brooklyn Brawler in the main event of Raw. And even if I watched this match and talked about it, who would want to listen? Because why would you have this in front of a pay-per-view where MJF has never looked weaker? And it's everything that he can do to finally beat this guy with an armbar. And then he offered the handshake. MJF offering sportsmanlike handshakes and conduct to people. And the Stooges stopped Garcia, who was about to accept, and make him leave the ring. Tell me what you think about all this shit.
All of this shit, that encompasses a lot. Specific to this match, I thought it was an all right match. You know, Garcia, he's at least more athletic looking than a Wheeler Yuta. But he still is, you know, he's in there with MJF, who's in phenomenal shape right now. Wrestling-wise, in terms of the stuff he does, it's all right. But he got over because of a dance that he does for 3 seconds The top of
Well,
the
wait a
ramp.
minute. And you say he got over because the dance may be over.
Yeah, people pop for him doing that dance move. I shouldn't even say it's over. Yeah. There's a part of the audience that pops for that. But then he's with a comedy tag team, because how else do you describe a French-Canadian Fonzie and the other guy who's just acting like he's a coked out guy with a Chicago accent? I don't know what their act is.
I think he's auditioning for West Side Story.
And again, they don't even have Anna Jay anymore, so it's a complete disappointment. But it was all right. And I think the biggest problem may be that opening segment into this. MJF has a lot of stuff going on. And the stuff that could be really good is the stuff with him and Joe. Even him and Wardlow, if done right, could be intriguing and different and interesting. But it's the other stuff that to me drags him down to a level that he shouldn't be. The Adam Cole stuff, even before Adam got hurt, was going down a real, I don't want to say like a dangerous road. It was going down a bad road of bad comedy and bad segments that were getting cheap pops, and the people there liked it. But at the same time, less people were there, and the pops, it was a law of diminishing returns.
Yes.
They kept going to it. And then Adam got hurt, and it got even worse because of the Roddy Strong stuff. I don't want to see Roddy Strong anymore on my TV at all. So he's then mixed up in all this. And then the Garcia stuff, like I said before, Garcia's all right. But he's been a comedy figure doing bad promos for a while. Remember the bad thing, I'm not a wrestler, I'm a sports entertainer? And then it never really fleshed out what that meant.
But then they're referring to it here for those of you who kept your notes that you made from 6 to 9 months ago.
And you're not going to make him serious in one night. So you took a guy who's a comedy guy, you tried to make him serious by giving him this match. I think MJF, if I had to guess, MJF's probably the most giving of any of the guys there who's been world champion. But maybe it's too much, because it seems like he's all over this show now. Like we said before, instead of getting that one segment, he's going to pop a number, because you have to see it. He's sprinkled throughout the show in a watered-down version. This isn't the 1940s Batman comics. This is the 1960s Batman comics. It's a very different animal.
Ooh.
And, hopefully there's the more serious stuff, like Joe and Wardlow.
But here's the thing. If Jay White is his next challenger, then shouldn't Jay White be able to just kick the shit out of MJF pretty easily because it was everything MJF could do to beat Garcia?
And listen, he gave Jay White a victory. We're not even talking about that.
Yes.
Which is very interesting. Jay White pinned him last week. You only do that if you're trying to be the ultimate team player, and I think maybe there's too much of that right now because MJF's the only star they got. Not to say Moxley isn't over with their fans and Danielson's not a top flight guy. No one can stay healthy. No one's around.
And besides that, you just made another valid and good point about he just got beat last week, so it shouldn't take him 15 minutes to beat a prelim guy. Whether they think that Daniel Garcia is a main event guy because they book him in main events is immaterial. It's how people see him. And the only people that see or even know the name Daniel Garcia are the people that are going to buy and or watch everything that AEW does. Sorry.
And one other thing I'll say, the commentary was so bad that even when it's a match that you want to take seriously, and they were trying to make this a serious match. They were trying to make this a different Daniel Garcia than we've seen for a while, but the commentary is so bad.
That's not the first time we've mentioned that, by the way, either about this program. But every time they make an inroad, give Kevin Kelly and Nigel McGuinness a two-man booth, then they muck that whole thing up.
Just give Rick a
where's Ian Riccaboni?
That's what you know what? Just put him and Caprice on fucking Dynamite. Just put them on Dynamite. It would make the product so much better. Just put that team. I don't even know if they're still doing Ring of Honor because I don't even know what Ring of Honor is at this point. Did you see even, not that I'll ever say anything nice about the guy, but even Carrie Silken put out a comment this week. Did you see that?
I did not.
Just about how disappointing it is. What's happened to Ring of Honor? What is it right now?
It's in Tony's mind.
It's in Tony's mind.
Well, speaking of Ring of Honor, up next, Mark Briscoe did a promo about Jay White. And I wrote that it was refreshing to hear an actual wrestling promo from an actual grown man. Mark's a great talker, but we'll tell you now, but when the match comes up, they've made the point more. Apparently, this Jay White versus Mark Briscoe match, the winner will get MJF at Full Gear. Haven't MJF and Jay White been talking about fighting each other at the pay-per-view at Full Gear for weeks now? Jay White stole the belt. MJF's been trying to get it back.
Promotion's done nothing.
But now they have a match on here between Mark. Why would Mark Briscoe, with the way that he's just come back from injury, and if they had been featuring him before that at a world title level, I missed it. So why would Mark Briscoe suddenly be in a match against Jay White to determine the main event of the fucking pay-per-view in 10 days?
Because Tony can't book. Because Tony's bad at booking. Because Tony has bad ideas. Because Tony gets talked into even worse ideas. Because Tony surrounds himself with yes men. Because Tony hires people who say nice things about his company. None of this is fucking serious.
Could you go back to number 3? I'm trying to write them down, but you were going too fast for me.
Mark Briscoe, how about give him some promo time the week before to build up to this? Instead of just all of a sudden, he's on the show, you haven't seen him in forever, here's what he has to say. Like, everything is rushed. Everything is just shoved and means nothing.
Rammed. Shoved. Well then, speaking of rammed and shoved, there's Darby and Sting had a match against the Outrunners. And they couldn't outrun Darby and Sting. As a matter of fact, they didn't even try. They got beat in 2 minutes. And that was apparently Darby is fucked up and hurt. But they just wanted to make sure that everybody got to see him. So
where was Flair?
Where was Flair and where was Woo Energy?
Yeah, they announced that big deal and then nothing. What happened?
Where were they? They were out in Portland, weren't they?
Oh, maybe that's why there was no Flair.
It was all the way across the country just for that.
He remembers what Don Owen paid him. He won't go back.
Then Tony Schiavone did a sit-down with Tony Storm and Hikaru Shida in black and white about their title match coming up. And Tony Storm is great, and Shida is Shida. She's sitting there. I know English is a second language, but there's no emotion. No, it's just like, I am going to beat you. Like that, while Tony Storm is chewing the scenery up. So that was that. And the next match was Swerve against Penthouse. And it's becoming a rib at this point that, besides these matches just pulled out of somebody's ass completely out of nowhere, Swerve is the heel who has recently goddamn invaded a man's home and menaced his baby. And Penthouse is supposed to be the baby face, right? Because Penthouse and Felix and Alex, they used to be heels, but now they're baby faces. But the fans loved it when Swerve beat Penthouse. So,
well, because they hate him for his beliefs and behaviors, but they're happy to see a guy get elevated.
So they like seeing a guy get high out there in Portland.
Who doesn't?
And I get Swerve's from Washington, so Portland is next to Washington. But that would be like people cheering for me if I was in Tennessee. I don't know.
No one in Tennessee would ever cheer you.
Hey, so Swerve tried to unmask Penthouse, but here came Hangnail Page in with a chair and beat the teetotal shit out of Swerve and the security in the entranceway. And it just
didn't get cheered. Didn't get cheered really.
Well, no, because we've already established they were on Swerve's side. And then he gave Swerve the dead eye, that thing where he picks the guy up over his shoulders and his head's hanging behind him. And he jumped off the entrance ramp through a table. And the referees pulled Page off, screaming and going psychotic over the whole thing. And Swerve is laying there motionless, left for dead, completely not moving. And Sockface said, well, Adam Page got a measure of revenge there. What the fuck? This guy broke in his house and stood over his kid's cradle and gave the kid a t-shirt. Page just came out, hammered him into jelly with a chair, and dropped him head first off the ramp through the fucking table, and he may be dead or paralyzed. How is that just a measure of revenge? What has he got to do? Isn't this program over now?
He should go to Swerve's house.
I shouldn't have asked for that.
He should go to Swerve's house. He can go film something over there. See what he has in his refrigerator.
But, I mean, when the babyface gets even with the heel, it's over with, right? How the fuck is this not even? How are they not even now?
I thought it was even after the pay-per-view match, or it was over after then. I don't know, but they have a big match coming up. I don't know if you saw what was announced.
Help me. I'm not sure I remember.
Well, we will preview the pay-per-view shortly, but at the pay-per-view, there's a Texas death match.
Oh, good Lord.
Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland.
Where are they in the world?
They are in a noted Texas deathmatch stronghold area, Inglewood, California.
Inglewood. Should have known. So, Officer Bar Brady was in the back with the gangbang gang, and Jay White did all the talking. His voice is like a New Zealand parakeet. Just very chirpy. He's the switchblade. He's the fucking this and that and the other thing.
Bang, bang, bing, and I got the this, and I'm Mr. This, and we all do this. Just let Juice talk and shut up already.
Please. And then moving quickly to get to the next set piece, but the Phallus video. Don Phallus had a video about the family that he's put together with highlights of all of his guys beating people up, while he's doing a voiceover about how dangerous they all are. And it was interspersed with video of video game fights. People punching and fighting each other in a video game. And yes, he made the comment because he's talking about old Twinkle Toes. This isn't a video game, Kenny. This is real life. But they're showing video game clips of people fighting in a video game in a wrestling package.
And they showed some of that footage of Callis and Takeshita walking around in Japan that we know now was filmed by Omega.
Yes, by Omega.
And the video game was Omega's baby, and the video game is a massive fucking bomb.
But was that from their video game? Because it was people on the street in a city somewhere fighting.
I didn't watch too much of it just because I thought it was just a video game commercial, so I fast-forwarded.
No, it didn't look like wrestling video game. It looked like the video games where they have the fights, and it looks like Speed Racer.
The fights? What, a Speed Racer? What video games are you thinking of?
The Japanese video games where the fights look like they did in the Speed Racer fucking program. Anyway, then...
No, but seriously...
they're punching the guy in the face.
We heard for so long that AEW was only losing money because of the video game, which I thought was a ridiculous thing, but that's what was said for a while. They were only losing money. It would be a profitable operation if not for the major investment of this video game, which should produce, I guess, steady revenue, good revenue, and also prompt further video game activities in the future, because we'll have this engine that we built that we can use and just plug in and modify.
Not only has it been on clearance, but didn't they just put out a release that they put out what do they call them, a patch, when they put out something that fixes it? There was a list of shit that this patch fixes. There was...
Because they rushed out a game that wasn't ready, and even when it's ready, it's not well done.
A college student would not want to read this much material before finals as the list of things that needed to be fixed on this thing by this patch.
But they put out this game, and we heard how this would be a game changer. It's a bomb, and if you look at the activity online, no one's playing it. Like, that was the other thing. People would play it online. They're introducing online play things, Stadium Stampede or whatever. No one's doing it. And it's not going to get better from here. So,
oh, well, now most video games sell the most after they've been out for a year or two, right?
Yeah, most video games like Pearl Jam 10. It just takes 2 years to go to number one. No, it doesn't happen it's not going to happen like that for this game, I assure you. But how much money did this game lose? And when we look at the profitability, or what we think the profitability of AEW is, how big of a drain is that video game on everything? And they're still trying to promote it Barely. I mean, they barely mention anymore, and nor should they. They should probably run away from it. But no, all kidding aside, it's their investment. And just a disaster. From day one, they started working on that video game before they even had a thing set up. And look at what happened.
Well, speaking...
Go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, just going to say, just it's amateur hour nonstop over there.
Well, speaking of the architect of their disaster, Kenny was up next to counterpoint Don's point. And I don't know if you listened to any of that. Well, you said you thought it was a video game commercial, but he's doing a voiceover in his breathless phone sex, tone. And it was drowned out by the ominous background music, so you couldn't hear what he was saying. Callis, you could hear, you couldn't hear Kenny. Maybe that's the problem. When he was in charge of the game, they couldn't understand what the fuck he was saying. It sounded like he was panting and having a stroke.
Was that the Omega promo, or was there a different promo that I'm thinking of later in the show?
No, because here's the one that's coming up. Okay. That was the Omega voiceover segment about his other thing, because everybody's involved in all these different things. But the one you're thinking of was Renee Moxley Good in the back with Jericho and Twinkle Toes. And they're starting to talk about their tag team when they got interrupted by Maddie and Nikki, the Buckaroos, who come in, "Hi, friend." And the story here is they're being smartasses because they're pissed off that Kenny used to be their friend, but now he's teaming with Chris, who ain't their friend. And his bag, they actually said, we're changing with the extras in the broom closet because Jericho's bag is so big it takes up all the room in our locker room. And then Jericho and the Buckaroos have an argument with each other about who started the company and whether Jericho and Omega could beat the Buckaroos or not.
How about them saying those are the 4 people that started the company, leaving out another 4th person I seem to recall?
Yes, the one that's a bigger star than all of them put together now, named Cody Rhodes. But they can't say that because he had the good sense to leave. And then it's so phony with these 2 little jackasses, these smarmy, obnoxious little pie-faced twits. Well, there's a show in our hometown coming up. Full Gear. It's not your hometown, Los Angeles. Your hometown is Rancho Cucamonga. But there's a show in our hometown coming up, Full Gear. How about we challenge and we have the match and the tag team match to see who can beat who? And Jericho likes it, but how about if we win, then we get your guaranteed title shot you're sitting on at the tag team title. And the Buckaroos say, okay, but if we win, no more Golden Jets. Fuck, no more of Kenny and Ibushi and Jericho. We reform the Elite. And then Kenny, being the dickless one there that never gets mad at anybody and is just a fucking complete doormat. Well, I'm disappointed in y'all's attitudes. So we'll do it. And maybe the Bucks, you'll quit being bitchy, whiny children. And this took forever also, just a 1-camera shot in the back while these self-indulgent, self-absorbed, smelling their own farts, fucking child-minded individuals. They're not young as children, but they have children's minds. Stood out there and jacked off with a thing that nobody gives a shit about. Who my friends are. It was the Elite. We're in 9th grade. We were friends, but then after summer camp, you wouldn't talk to me anymore. What the fuck is this?
We're right back where we were 4 years ago. It has done nothing to help the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks did things that people pointed to, said, look at how selfless they are. They didn't make themselves the first champions when they probably should have.
That's when they were the most over, before people got used to them.
Or they lost the Private Party. Where's Private Party today? They didn't do any good with any of that stuff. And then here we are, years of they're the Elite, but they can't get along. They're the Elite, but they're broken up. But then they come together, but then they can't get along for childish reasons. They've been doing this for a while to smaller results each time, and they're still returning back to the only thing they know how to do. which is
Here's
bad
their
comedy.
booking. Their booking is when the Buckaroos have been baby faces for long enough that the people see through their shit. They always have the same match. They're obnoxious little cretins that nobody would like personally, and they annoy people, and they look like fucking goofs out there trying to wrestle with men. When people figure that out, then they become asshole, whiny heels in storyline to explain people either rolling their eyes at them or outright booing them. They say, well, that's when we're heels. They're supposed to not like us. That's because people don't fucking like them. And then whenever they see a chance to jump in and do something they want to do with their friends or win a new set of belts that they've had Tony make up, then they switch back babyface and they run a little while on the people going, oh, well, we're supposed to like them now. Okay. Until they see too much of them and start booing them again. Then they switch back to obnoxious, whiny fucking heels because that's typecasting. Yeesh. Yeesh, I say.
You say.
You know what? All that stuff that the Buckaroos wear, Brian, that's another thing. Maybe they're so miserable and so malcontented and so obnoxious and such smartasses because they're uncomfortable. Do you think maybe they're wearing underwear that has a special double seam with rough thread right up the crack of their taint? Or are they wearing those T-shirts that they make your underarms itch because they've got scratchy material and a unwell done seam there? Do you think that the whole problem with the Buckaroos is just that they're not comfortable in their own clothing or even their own skin?
I think it's deep rooted. I think it's from the way they were brought up, and I think there's a lot of problems there. But I also have a problem with you using this as the transition because, just to play spoiler here, I really like Marine Lair.
Yes.
I don't know if I want them enjoying the really nice clothes that I like.
Well, now, see, here's the thing. The challenge is, can Marine Lair and their fine, fashionable, comfortable clothing make everybody look good?
But I don't want them to look good. That clothes should be for us, for the listeners, for nice people, for good people, not for the Bucks.
Well, but you know, the thing is, if we're wearing the same stuff that they are, well, people aren't really going to notice it's the same stuff because they're going to have to wear the children's sizes.
Oh, that's
Ours
true.
is going to be bigger and more obvious.
They're not going to need Marge.
No, they're not going to need Marge. They probably never had Marge. They're gonna need small and extra small, but Marine Lair.
They married the first Marge they met, I understand.
Well, that's as a matter of fact. And Marge is not large.
I don't
but
even know
the folks, I don't know what we're doing. You're just leading me down the road. The folks at Marine Lair have clothes no matter what size you are. They can't do anything to make your personality any better, but they can make you look good and feel good. And everybody knows it's better to look good and feel good than to act good. But right now, folks, our fine friends at Marine Lair, we've been talking about this clothing. It's so soft. It's ridiculous. I don't know how they do it. The T-shirts are like you've washed them 1,000 times, but they still look brand new with no holes in them. That incredible long-sleeved, I can't call it a sweatshirt. It's not fluffy. It's soft and it's not furry, but it feels like fur. It feels like they took puppy dog hair and they spun it on a golden spinning wheel into the softest shirt that you've ever worn in your life. No seams in various places. And they have all those strange sizes, including Marge, which is in the middle of medium and large, just to make sure it fits just right. And now, Brian, they got the Winter Archive collection. Ski-inspired, ton of bright colors. They've got puffer vests. And I'll tell you what, you know, those puffer fish can be poisonous. So if you can put a vest on them and maybe even a muzzle, then they'll be less dangerous when you're swimming amongst them. And the folks at Marine Lair have free shipping and returns for an entire year, no questions asked. So if you get somebody something that's the wrong size, the wrong color, boom, they send it back. You're not going to be interrogated. They're too trusting, these folks. But you can take advantage of that. And spreading the holiday cheer, Brian, our listeners, all of the Cult of Cornette out there are going to get a 15% off discount with our exclusive link. And you're a huge fan of all this fine apparel. You're wrapped up in it now as we speak. You're wearing several
That's
of their
right.
things at the same time.
And we don't get to use the promo code. We have to pay full price. And I don't mind because it's really good stuff, but at least the listeners get to save a few bucks. This is great stuff, though.
Well, and you got the incredible plush jock strap.
No, why do you keep going back to my jock strap? I don't have a plush jock strap, for the record.
You were complaining that your old one wasn't soft enough after you'd bleached it so many times because it had those stains.
No, you're talking about the itchy conversation with Britt Baker.
Well, nevertheless, if you need an itch scratched, folks, the folks at Marine Layer will scratch it for you because you got an itch to wear fine, stylish clothing that's comfortable and fits well, and they'll fix you up with all that stuff. Sweaters, T-shirts, overshirts. They've got beanies.
Disc golf.
Disc golf, yes. Harken back to long ago. Absurdly soft clothing for your friends, your neighbors, your family members. It's backed by guarantees, free shipping and returns, all that type of stuff. And you get 15% off if you go to Marine Layer, MARINELAYER, marinelayer.com/JCE15. 15% off everything in the place. marinelayer.com/JCE15. Well, back over to Dynamite, we were at the 9 o'clock hour, Brian. They got to haul out the big guns, the heavy hitters, and we got the Ring of Honor TV title match. And that would sound even more ridiculous than it is, except they've had a great Ring of Honor TV champion, Samoa Joe, maybe the only real fucking main event heel they've got right now in that fucking company. And they put him against Keith Lee in that red hot program. I'm not going to describe a lot of this match, although it would be easy because not a lot happened. But remember the old kind of rule of thumb I've talked about, Brian, where the fans in their minds and or the Mark Bookers in their minds think they want to see the irresistible force against the immovable object, the Road Warriors against the Warlord and Barbarian, the Giant against the Giant. But when they actually see it, it doesn't do anybody any favors.
Right.
This was it. They want to see the big babyface beat up a little heel with fucking heat, or they want to see the big fucking heel, pretty much clobber the littler babyface and let the littler babyface be goddamn resourceful and overcome adversity. But Joe can still go. The problem with Keith Lee, and when he was on NXT, we said, wow, he's got some physical gifts. This guy, you could do something with him. But then the more I saw of him, and then when he switched affiliations and was allowed to do more of his own thing, the more I realized why they weren't doing anything with him. His promos are abysmal because that sing-song lilting voice. He makes weird fashion choices from gear to whether he dyes his hair or not. He'll look like Father Time 1 minute and fucking have jet black hair the next. And he can do he did a leapfrog in this match and a crossbody. And he can do a couple of athletic things, but the pace for Keith Lee is glacial, where he does a thing or two, but then he's got to walk around. Is it the result of he's 40 now or whatever his age is? Is it the illness that he had, the COVID complications? I think if you got the Keith Lee of 10 years ago and made him a heel and gave him a manager and never heard him speak, and kept the matches short, that you would have had something. And maybe a big something. Because you could get that fucker over despite his best efforts if you controlled him. And he was young enough to get it done. But I'm thinking the window has closed. We've been talking about windows. What do you think?
I think the window's closed. I think without knowing anything firmly, it seemed like there was some kind of health issue for a while. And since he's come back, either he's not the same guy or naturally, due to his size and age, he can't be what he was just a few years ago.
Yeah.
Baseball players, sometimes you go from hitting 35 home runs to the next year you can't hit more than 10. It's just finally it happens. I don't know if it's that or what it is, but...
Do you remember when Crusher Blackwell was the guy in 1981, 82 that everybody in the wrestling, all the fans wanted to see? He was amazing. You couldn't take your eyes off that shit. Holy mackerel. By 1987, he was working indies in Georgia and was a shell of his former self. It was the size and the weight. But anyway, yeah, so Joe, after whatever they did, he got a choke and choked him out. I'm like, Jesus. But then Joe does a promo in the ring. And remember, I said, well, at least he's made the Ring of Honor TV title something. I am the best wrestler on television. And he could hold that up and he could crow about it and defend it and brag about it. And it gave him something. So he comes out and vacates the Ring of Honor TV title. I want the AEW World title. I'm not going to settle for second best, so I'm vacating this. Whether you like it or not, Max, is what he said. Why not keep it and win the other title too? They've established that can be a thing that happens there. But why? Isn't that like giving up your goddamn, your bank account before you've got the next check? Why not keep it and be safe?
MJF is literally a Ring of Honor champion right now.
Yes. He's the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champion and the AEW World Champion. So why can't Samoa Joe be the Ring of Honor TV Champion and the World Champion? So now we've got another vacant title with potentially another tournament that'll have to take place after the tournament that they're about to have, they announced the other tournament on Collision, which we're not watching because, Jesus Christ, we've only got so much time.
And that's a round robin tournament. That's a round robin tournament.
So we'll keep the people updated on all the tournaments as they come up. Did you notice that in another backstage promo, we found out why that they never let Pockets speak? He just says, whatever. This time he talked. And it was, it's complete now. It's official. He can't do anything. He can't wrestle. He can't cut a promo. He can't draw money. He looks like shit. There is literally not one talent involved with the wrestling industry that he possesses. I think he read this off a teleprompter. It was like they gave the kids in class, a homework assignment, write your promo. And the best one will put it on a teleprompter and stand in front of a camera and you can read it. So they did that.
Yeah, not good.
Apparently, Wheeler Useless and Plumber Moxley are going to fight Pockets and Hook in some type of gang warfare match in California.
No, that's not on the pay-per-view.
No, that's just on free TV next week.
Okay, if they make it.
And the price is right.
Yeah.
Then the Gun Boys beat the Bollywood Boys. And this one, I think, set a new record. The entire match was a kick, a clothesline, and they hit their finish. 1, 2, 3. And then the Guns did a promo. Colton started out, and he can talk better than Jay White. And then Austin went, he can talk better than Jay White. We know Juice can talk better than Jay White. Why the fuck are they letting Jay White do all this talking? And their promo is MJF doesn't have any friends or any partners because they're wrestling him for the Ring of Honor tag title at Full Gear. But he just had the Acclaimed and Billy that were his partners last week against the Bang Bang Clangers, but they didn't work out. So, fucking hell. Meanwhile, MJF was watching this interview with the Guns on the monitor in the back, and Joe walked up to make an offer again, and MJF walked off away from him. And so again, all this promotion for a fucking tag team title match from a secondary promotion, he's the world champion. And Plummer and Useless then answered Pockets and Hook. And then Julia Hart wrestled Red Velvet. And Julia Hart looks great, but again, she won. She started to get more heat. Why, when the heels beat the babyface, do they then turn around and beat him up again? When it's not a personal issue, long-running grudge, they've made their point.
Because they're
it's
bad.
Only the heel's supposed to get heat with it because they're sore losers. Anyway, jump on them again. Here comes Blue Sky in, and they stared at each other. And then Statlander and Willow came in, and they all stared at each other. And then Julia Hart left, and then Chris Statlander left. And then they'd stop staring at each other. Should I go on?
No, but why not finish this?
We're almost done. So RJ City introduced the latest big signing in AEW. Mariah May. Mariah May is the latest big signing in AEW. And she's got an English accent. And she's thrilled to be there. And Toni Storm is her hero. Now, she's a blonde girl. And even though we've never heard of her before and have no idea who the fuck she is or why anybody would be, oh, look at our latest signing. If she's coming in to be a stooge, a sycophant, a secondary ancillary starlet to Toni Storm, that might be fun. But otherwise, are we supposed to know who this woman is?
No, and it was kind of like a single white female Toni Storm thing. We'll see what happens, but we don't know who she is. We'll see how it works out.
And then we got to the main event. Mark Briscoe versus Jay White. And Mark has been injured. I think he hurt his knee. But they weren't using him, obviously. We talked about how they dropped the incredible ball that they were handed again last year with Mark. And, or was it early this year, but almost a year ago, whatever. And, now I wrote down, I already know the wrong guy's going over. Jay White's going to win this. I know that. Mark is somebody they could have got a lot of use out of. I'm afraid that horse has left the barn because he's been marginalized by the ridiculous, shitty booking. But they're saying the winner of this match faces MJF at Full Gear in 10 days. And I said this earlier. Have they not been promoing MJF and Jay White for fucking weeks? Is it they just made it official now, but they've been talking about it? What's going on here? Or is this part of those multiple segment challenges they make where nobody actually gets the goddamn match out and nobody can understand exactly where it's taking place, and you just have to kind of figure it out? They had a good match with Mark, and Jay White can wrestle somewhat. We saw him and Juice have a wonderful match with FTR, and Mark can go. It was a good match. It was totally out of place due to both of their presentation. And Mark Briscoe was kicking the shit out of Jay White, the same thing that happened to the world champion earlier. A guy that's just come off an injury, that's never been used to his proper potential in this company, is kicking the shit out of the guy that's about to challenge for the world heavyweight title. And they got a bunch of 2 counts, and then Jay White hit some kind of weird move and hit his finish 1, 2, 3. And as the heels were celebrating, MJF's music plays and his shit's on the screen and they're looking at the entranceway. But MJF outsmarted him and jumped him from behind. And it is like we've been talking about, at least he's a goddamn criminal again for that. And he nailed all the Stooges with the diamond ring and then had a face-off with Jay White. And Jay White rolls out of the ring and goes up the ramp, and MJF cuts a promo. And he better win this match because he said, among other things, you'll have to kill me to beat me. Oh, babyface never makes promises that his ass can't fucking keep. And then he said, I'm fighting for Adam Cole, for the TV viewers, for the fans here in the building, because I'm their scumbag. He is full-fledged babyface, pandering to everybody. I'm doing it all for the people, MJF. And he was about to say something else, and my DVR froze plumb up because they were out of time. Did anything else happen? Because I don't know.
I don't think so.
And I'm wondering, even though that was a good match overall, was anybody still watching this fiasco at that point? To if a match is good in a forest with a tree falling on it, can anybody hear it when they cut it up with a chainsaw?
Well, Jim, why don't we go over the ratings here? This is AEW Dynamite for November 8th, 2023 on TBS. On average, AEW Dynamite was watched by 804,000 viewers.
Okay, on the low end of their range every fucking week.
And let's go to the quarterly breakdowns. These were compiled by WrestleNomics. Quarter 1, 8 to 8:15 p.m. MJF's live promo and confrontation or discussion with Adam Cole, Daniel Garcia, Matt Menard, Angelo Parker, Roderick Strong, and The Kingdom, followed by the beginning of MJF versus Daniel Garcia with picture-in-picture, 892,000 viewers.
Okay, that's, I think it's less than they started out with last week, but with the average, they will probably hold and then fall off a cliff if I'm looking at the average and the starting point appropriately.
Well, quarter 2, 8:15 to 8:30 p.m., the continuation of MJF versus Daniel Garcia, the post-match with Matt Menard, Angelo Parker, and then an ad break. I was about to say ad break is their partner. And then an ad break.
He was Ad Santel's partner.
A Mark Briscoe video. Very good. And then the beginning, the entirety of Daniel, I can't talk. Darby Allin and Sting versus the Outrunners. And that post-match, 827,000 viewers.
Ouch. Okay. They got to hold steady from here.
Well, quarter 3, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. The Tony Storm Hikaru Shida sit-down in black and white promo. And the beginning of Penta El Zero Miedo versus Swerve Strickland with picture-in-picture, 814,000 viewers.
Jesus. So that's 40 to 70, 78,000 viewers in the first 45 minutes have departed, but they're getting rapidly close to their average, so they either got to pick something up or stabilize pretty soon.
Quarter 4, 8:45 to 9 p.m., the continuation of Penta El Zero Miedo versus Swerve Strickland, the post-match with Adam Page and his chair, Jay White's backstage promo, Kenny Omega video, an ad break, Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega confronted by the Young Bucks backstage, 818,000 viewers.
And so they pretty much stayed steady there, 4,000 difference. And we're coming into the 9 o'clock hour, which, as we mentioned, was Samoa Joe and that young whippersnapper Keith Lee.
The big 9 o'clock hour, Samoa Joe versus Bearcat Keith Lee with picture-in-picture, followed by a Joe promo and then Orange Cassidy's promo, 866,000 viewers.
Okay, so they did pick up 48,000 people at the top of the hour. Now the question is, according to what I'm looking at from their overall average and the quarters they've done, is it going to be quarter 6, 7, or 8 that falls off a fucking cliff? Because they got to go back down.
Quarter 6, 9:15 to 9:30 p.m. The Guns versus the Bollywood Boys, followed by a Guns promo, followed by a Moxley backstage promo, followed by an ad break, and then the start of Red Velvet versus Julia Hart with picture-in-picture, 769,000 viewers.
There you go. 97,000 people said sayonara.
Quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. The continuation of Red Velvet versus Julia Hart. The post-match with Willow Nightingale, Sky Blue, and Chris Statlander. RJ City talks with Mariah May, an ad break, and the start of Mark Briscoe versus Jay White. 696,000 viewers.
Oh, good Lord. Okay, there went another 73,000 people. They lost 169,000 viewers in 45 minutes.
And finally, quarter 8, 9:45 to 10 p.m., the continuation of Mark Briscoe versus Jay White, picture-in-picture ads, and the post-match with MJF and the Bullet Club Gold. 750,000 viewers.
So the MJF factor gets them back 54,000 people at the end to see what might happen probably amongst them, all with that.
Mark Briscoe, who's talented, and they've done nothing to establish him on this show against Jay White, who they're pushing as hard as they can, well, in their own way, against MJF, including giving him a victory, having him punk MJF out, stealing his belt, and no one is going to tune in to watch him. There's the problem. They pushed someone into the main event that no one was ready for. At least amongst domesticated and domestic wrestling fans who
are they paper trained?
As long as they don't watch New Japan already, they're probably not going to accept Jay White in this role as he's been presented.
So the low point on the show was 196,000 viewers below where they started, and the end of the show, which was the second lowest point, was 142,000 below what they started, but that's still not as big a percentage as they normally lose. So this was a victory. The other week they lost about 30%, didn't they? This would only be less than 20%.
Oh, just wait until Vanderpump returns.
That guy's pissing me off. He makes all these rules. We don't even know who he is or what he looks like, and he draws all these big ratings.
Well, Jim, speaking of making rules, I don't know about making rules, but making matches, something that Tony Khan loves to do. Can we quickly preview the lineup for Full Gear, the AEW pay-per-view extravaganza coming to us next weekend?
Yes, on November 18th from Los Angeles, but they're still making matches. Do we have the whole card? I mean, it's only, as we speak, 6 days away. They're still announcing shit. They just announced that Twinkle Toes and Jerabloat against the Buckaroos match just the other day. So do we have the whole card?
I have at least 9 matches.
Oh, well, that's not the whole card. They got to have at least 15, don't they?
Well, here we go. AEW Full Gear 2023 coming at you November 18th, 2023 from the Kia Forum, Los Angeles, California, 4 p.m. Pacific start time. Announced as of now, in a Texas death match, Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland.
Okay, Page is not from Texas. Neither is Swerve. They have constant no disqualification matches, which is all that their Texas death matches are. It's the same thing, just anything goes, no rules. If Hangnail wants to be a cowboy, why don't they bring the bunkhouse match back? They could have a bunkhouse out there in suburban Virginia. And there could be, I know for a fact that if Hangnail Page has a bunkhouse, there's going to be a lot of bunk in it. So why don't they just have a bunkhouse match and not lie to people?
I'm not sure. The next match, based on the image on the AEW website, it appears to be for the TBS Championship, Chris Statlander against Julia Hart against the winner of Sky Blue versus Red Velvet. So it'll be a 3-way, but we still have yet to determine who the third will be.
Okay, and also, didn't Red Velvet just get beat by Blue Sky, didn't she?
By Julia Hart.
Didn't we just say that?
By Julia Hart.
That's right, but Julia Hart got... So Red Velvet got beat by Julia Hart. So why is she in this title match?
Well, she's not. She has to beat Sky Blue to get in the title match.
Why would she even be in consideration when she just got beat?
Because a win over Sky Blue is so big it redeems for anything else you have done wrong. Like leave brass knuckles on the apron or lose matches to Julia Hart.
Faultless logic.
Gotcha there.
Continue.
For the AEW World Tag Team Championship, based on this image, it appears to be a four-way match.
Jeez.
The champions, Ricky Starks and Big Bill, versus FTR, versus the House of Black, and it appears to be Malachi Black and Brody King, versus LFI, consisting of Roosh and his brother, Dralistico.
You know, I would like to see FTR against Starks and Big Bill again because they didn't really have a match. It was an angle the first time. And to see if they can get something out of them. And they're going to throw in the House of Black and LaFuckers and Goobers to just clutter the whole thing up and make it nonsensical, and nobody's going to prosper from it. So that'll be fun.
For the AEW Women's Championship, the champion Hikaru Shida versus Timeless Toni Storm.
Do you think they could be insane enough not to put Toni Storm over here?
In Hollywood? In Los Angeles? No, they have to.
Well, but if it was in Poughkeepsie, she looks great. She can talk. She's got some oomph. She's attracting attention. If you're not going to take wrestling seriously anyway, the women's matches are good shit not to take seriously and just being entertained by. So you've got a champion that can barely speak English, can't do a promo, has shitty fucking matches, and looks like she's confused all the time, or Toni Storm. So naturally, Shida will probably retain. Because of the Omega factor, maybe.
Right. And, you know, we see the ratings, but I think one day there needs to be a conversation again about, should AEW even have a women's division? But Jim, the next match here, Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho, the Golden Jets, versus Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks.
Whether he's a golden jet, a golden lover, a golden shower, or a whatever the fuck, it's still fucking Twinkle Toes and the Young Bucks playing around, and now Jericho has interjected himself in that so that he can play with all the EVPs and they get preferential treatment. He's hanging out with the cool kids in the hallway after fucking gym period or whatever. Good Lord. Jericho will slow it down a little bit. It'll be chaos whenever the other three are in. And who gives a shit? And whose side are we supposed to be on? They're all either ex-heels, heels that never actually switched, or just insufferable douchebag personalities. Whose side are we supposed to be on in this fucking nattering old women's goddamn argument about who's the real friend of who?
This really doesn't seem like much of a pay-per-view lineup. Let's go to the next match, Jim. A trios match. Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne versus Adam Copeland, Darby Allin, and Sting.
You know, that actually, the match makes perfect sense. They've built it up well. You know who the heels are and who the baby faces are. And it's part of Sting's retirement. Edge is involved. And Christian is being the best heel promo in the company. So out of anything that you would put on pay-per-view that you've read off to me so far, that sounds like the one that might sell a fucking ticket.
Also on the card, for the AEW International Championship, the champion Orange Cassidy versus Jon Moxley.
And how do you think they talk? Is Moxley so far gone with his CTE or substances that have damaged his mental capacity that he wants to do this? Or is he doing it to get over with the fucking people who like this idiot? Or is he just wanting his belt back and he's got to have this match to win it back? What's going on?
No, remember, he beat Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy hasn't beaten him.
But Orange Cassidy had wait a minute, who's got the belt now?
Orange Cassidy.
Yeah.
He got it from Phoenix, who got it from the concussed Moxley.
So Moxley needs to have this match to get his belt back. He's certainly not doing it like on purpose, thinking it would draw money or make him look good. It's just something they've got to get done, right?
Oh, no, he's going to lose. He's
indulging that Tony...
No, he's going to lose. They're going to give Orange Cassidy his win back, I think.
You're out of your mind.
We'll see. They're going to give Orange Cassidy the win back that they wanted
Moxley,
to give him originally.
the guy that sells nothing for anybody, it wouldn't stay down if he got run over by a fucking car and loves to bleed and get wrapped up in all this violence. He's going to put a joke mascot over in the middle of the ring on pay-per-view?
I think so.
He needs to go back to rehab.
Well, we'll see what happens. 2 more matches, Jim. For the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championship, the champions, MJF and a wrestler to be determined, versus the Guns.
All right, it's Samoa Joe, and they're going to win the titles, or they're going to retain the titles, and then Joe is going to be crowing that the only reason that MJF could win was because of him. And Adam's going to be upset because Joe's taken his place. And MJF is going to be confused about the whole thing like the fans are. And if they're lucky, MJF won't get hurt in this preliminary match so that he can come back and defend the World Heavyweight title in the fucking pay-per-view main event, which I assume you're about to tell us.
And finally, the main event for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. The champion, MJF, versus the belt holder, Jay White.
I mean, what more can we say? They lead people to believe it's going to happen, several weeks out. Then they make it official 8 days out. But more promotion has been done on the Ring of Honor tag team title situation. MJF's going to have to work twice. Not that it's going to be a stretch for him physically, but that you go out, you lose your virgin pop by going out in a preliminary match, probably engaging in foolishness, and then have to go back out in the main event and try to get Jay White over. I mean, as a credible challenger. He's not Merlin the Magician, MJF. He can't do every goddamn thing. And it's ridiculous. It's like they booked this thing from the bottom up instead of the top down. What's the best preliminaries we can have? Okay, we'll finish the main events out later. It doesn't make any sense.
And that's AEW Full Gear, and we'll see if it's as exciting as it appears it will be in advance.
The bar is low. And apparently, if Tony's sitting at it, fully stocked. Well, Brian, is the Arcadian Vanguard Network fully geared up this week for all the fine programming?
Of course we are, as we always are on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook at facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few notes. Of course, the wrestling news. Every day, get your wrestling news for free, which are morning wrestling newscast from the wrestling news. Keep up with everything happening around Full Gear. Hear it from the Wrestling News. Get it directly from thewrestlingnews.com or look for the Wrestling News. Arcadian Vanguard's The Wrestling News, wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Or wherever you find your favorite wrestling news.
That's right, from the Wrestling News.
What's the name of that show again?
The Wrestling News. What do you got to say about that? You're a staff. By the way, I don't need any of the staff members of the Wrestling News giving me any lip. I have you under contract.
Hey, is that contract open-ended? I thought it expired in 2020.
No, the only thing that was outside of its purview was anything you did with the Japanese magazine. So everything else, you are under contract. But find out, I was going to say who else is under contract. No one else is...
No one else is still alive that was around back then.
Check out the latest episode of Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam, where they look back at SummerSlam 1988, Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan with Miss Elizabeth against the Mega Bucks, Ted DiBiase, Andre the Giant with Virgil, Jesse Ventura, the guest referee, and Elizabeth stuns all these grown men by exposing her legs. Hear all about that and so much more at McAdamPod.com.
It worked for Mildred Burke.
You know, it is an interesting thing to get her up on the apron, and it was so tame, WWE at the time. Her removing her skirt to show that she's wearing a, bikini bottom, nothing scandalous, caused DiBiase and Ventura to freeze.
Just lose that. Well, it's the first time they'd seen something like that out in public.
That's right, without Randy punching someone. But hear all about it, McAdamPod.com, or look for Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, The Mothership! Sometimes it's good to get a big one like that to clean out the system. Go through the archive, 605pod.com. Wherever you find your favorite podcast, The Mothership.
I'm glad you got a big one to clean out your system there. Me.
That's actually a fantastic transition, cleaning out the system. We've talked about all this modern wrestling. I guess let's talk about something to clean out the system of all that.
Well, a little palate cleanser, because if we only had time. We can't do it all today, but we're going to tell you what we're going to be doing on an ongoing basis from now on, actually, as we get into this. But as we mentioned, or alluded to at least a few times in the program, there's a lot of 40th anniversaries coming up. The 40th anniversary of the first Starrcade, Starrcade 83. The 40th anniversary of the Midnight Express, which actually, our 40th anniversary officially is the day before the anniversary of Starrcade, because our first shot in Mid-South Wrestling was the day before Thanksgiving 1983. So that's at the same time. And then the 40th anniversary of Hulkamania, the Hulk Hogan era, and Vince McMahon's national expansion.
You can't really... Well,
go ahead. What?
You can't really say Hulkamania. This is one of those things where Vince McMahon pretends they invented Hulkamania.
Oh, yeah, all right.
He calling it Hulkamania for Vern in '82.
But the intermingling, the merging of Hulkamania and him winning the WWF title with Vince's national expansion and the War of 1984 and all that stuff, we're a couple months away from when that all started. And so we're going to end, as we know, right here, I have all of my books, because now we're starting to get into the good stuff. I've been talking several times. We've done the deep dives over the past few months on what I was doing in 1983. And we're probably by the end of the year going to finish that out, just with some spots we skipped. But I was talking about, I'm working 5 times every night, managing and wrestling in battle royals and handicap matches for $50 and $75, and getting plenty of experience, and am the least important and lowest paid member of the roster. And all of a sudden, that would whiplash into, me being part of the hottest heels in Mid-South Wrestling and leading them to a record business year at the same time as Vince was starting to make his moves and all this stuff was going on. And then, as we've talked about many times, our period with Crockett, when we were basically the competition, there wasn't anybody else that was in a place to challenge Vince. And I've got all those books too. So we're going to be on an ongoing basis, discussing not only my months as we've done before, where I was, what the show was, what the gate was, what the payoff may have been, or interesting anecdotes about those days. But also, we've got anniversaries of a lot of shit coming up where I was in the business, not necessarily there, but it was all part of this explosion that happened. And to put it in modern terms is hard, because a lot of the economics have changed in the wrestling business, and that the way that television viewership is measured and the ratings have been refined. And I don't know about refined, but the ratings now are goddamn more minute and in more granular detail, and they're breaking the demos down and doing this. And, people barely understand television ratings as it is without trying to tell them that they were done differently 25 years ago, and they were done even more differently 40 years ago. We'll see if we can make all of that make sense and try to illustrate for the people who may not have been born or may not have been old enough to be cognizant how impactful the 80s, were to the business, because I still maintain, Brian, that there were more people watching wrestling on TV in the 80s than there were in the Attitude Era. But because all the shows were broken up and the syndication and the individual local markets and the different territories, there was no way to measure it. We got measurements
plus cable television.
Plus cable television. And the thing is, as we'll be talking about, a lot more people in those days, in let's say 1980 through 1985, watched their local territory more than they did a cable television program. And that all changed, except for in Atlanta, the TBS show was pretty much their local territory program. But you see what I'm saying there.
Well, Channel 17 was a local channel in Atlanta.
Yes. But there were many more people that were able to watch wrestling on their local stations and did than were able to see, even through the 80s, TBS on cable nationally. And it was doing 2 and 3 million people by itself on Saturday nights for programs with squash matches. So I'm wondering, and we'll never know the answer because it's not possible unless, your time machine, you and Stewie Griffin. But can you imagine if there had been pay-per-view in 83, 84, 85, and I know somebody's going to say, well, it wasn't widespread. Even the first WrestleMania it was closed circuit. That's why Vince had such a gamble. He rented all those buildings. And then I think they did their first one experimenting with it, Wrestling Classic, in 86?
No, that was 85. That was, I think.
Was it 85? Later,
November
after
85.
WrestleMania. Yeah.
October or November, I forget.
The point is, we still, and this is the problem, Vince went to pay-per-view, then in 86, WrestleMania 2 was still closed circuit. And did they do some pay-per-view on that, or was it WrestleMania 3?
Well,
it was part and part.
They did some pay-per-view on that. WrestleMania 3 is what gave WWF a leverage in the field because it was a monster hit on pay-per-view in the early days of pay-per-view when a lot of homes didn't even have pay-per-view still.
So point I'm trying to make, and I'm beating around the bush here, is if you had backed pay-per-view up a couple of years, because the thing about this, 84, 85, and 86 were both companies really their best years, and maybe 87 some for Vince, and Crockett started going down because of the purchases of all the different promotions and et cetera. But the Starrcades, Starrcade 83 was massive for its time, and it was probably the biggest grossing, and not probably, it had to be, the biggest grossing NWA event of all time to that point when you counted in the closed circuit locations. But I do have figures because I was there and involved for 85 and 86. And we had, 86 was the big one, but you had 60,000 people that made plans on Thanksgiving night to leave their homes, to drive to an arena, to buy a ticket, to go in and buy popcorn and Cokes and hot dogs and whatever, and sit in the arena and watch the show on a fucking screen. And it wasn't even, well, not 60,000. That was a total of, so 30-something thousand of those. There was 16,000 in Greensboro and 14 or 15 in the Omni. There were 5,000 more people in Greensboro that were watching on a screen because they couldn't get into the Coliseum. But they went live in person. Half of them saw it live. Half of them were still in a building where the show was in another town, and they were watching a screen. And it wasn't the Titantron that you get now. It was, I saw Ali and Inoki in the 70s on closed circuit. I think my TV room TV is almost as big as some of the screens he's building had. And it was a projector thing, so it wasn't like it was high def. If we'd had pay-per-view, and Vince too, but especially Crockett's crowds and fans, I think, were more dedicated because they had a better conversion rate of, Vince had all that television and had great viewership, and he did great in his markets, but Crockett and Watts at that point had such an incredible conversion rate in their smaller and mid-sized markets between the people that watched television and the people that bought tickets to the live events that I can't imagine what either company would have done with pay-per-view in 84, 85, and 86 when that was really the hottest part of both companies' business, the first 3 years of the conflict, as they say. What do you think?
Well, the bigger question is, if there was pay-per-view, how does that affect the business? So in 84, if pay-per-view in Mid-South was, let's say, the Superdome events, how does that change the way you're pushing the local cards in all the towns in the territory if you're trying to push people to buy something at home?
Well, very good. And let's take the Superdome, for example.
Right, because that's like the best thing, because otherwise it's like, Tulsa will be on pay-per-view, just a house show. It has to be a big event, you would think, right?
Well, it wouldn't have to be, because think about this. Houston. If, Houston, the house for the last Stampede with Watts was only like, 75 grand less than the Superdome house. We had 12,200 and whatever people. It was jammed. It was that would have looked incredible on pay-per-view. If you put a big event in a number of those, in the Myriad in Oklahoma City, 13,000 people, we had we've gone over it in the deep dive, several sellouts that year. Watts had a bunch of places that would have looked like a major league atmosphere if you'd had pay-per-view and they'd have stuck anything other than the arena lights in there. We never had lights. It was the arena lights or the ring lights or whatever the fuck they had in the building.
But I guess the issue is, if you're looking at a territory like Mid-South, where everything done on TV is the build to a payoff in the arenas.
In the arena, you're worried about duplication of cards.
Right. If everything's building to one show that everyone throughout the territory would pay to see, how does that affect everything?
Well, here's the thing. There were always special features in the Superdome. Not always, but usually a big star brought in or some outside the territory match. I'm thinking that he would have increased that. And, then you could tweak your finishes or change your stipulation. I don't think that he would have done it more than a couple of times a year, because then you would burn that out and there would be some duplication. But, that's the thing is, though, that we've established that when WWE runs WrestleMania, people come from all over. But in those days, the people that went to the Superdome, besides the most devoted female fans that came from all over, and a few, really diehard guys that had jumped in the car and go anywhere to see, the Freebirds or, Junkyard Dog or whatever, it was from that market. The New Orleans market drew the 20,000 people. So if we had 23,000 people for the last Stampede against Bill Watts and Junkyard Dog in the Superdome, if all those people were coming from different markets, then why did we had it in every other town and it still set a record? They saw it in Baton Rouge, 75 miles up the road. They saw it in Biloxi, another 75 miles in the other direction. So it was these local markets, because of the incredible ratings that the television was doing, that were getting these people to drive. For the Superdome, yeah, you drive an hour and a half, but outside he didn't even promote the Dome outside the New Orleans TV market. Maybe you knew that it was going to happen, but the matches weren't promoted in other markets, and unless it was a match that was only going to happen there. And every once in a while, you'd see a clip from the show at the Dome after it was over with, if they shot an angle, like when we ethered Duggan and Wendy Richter helped us out. They put that on, but otherwise the Dome wasn't on television. So, point I'm making is, Can you imagine with the conversion rate that Watts had for the local televisions, the viewers buying tickets to the live events, and applied that to every TV market in Mid-South can see the Dome show live as it happens without leaving your fucking house on pay-per-view. We might have done 100,000 pay-per-views like old Tony's doing now in the Mid-South territory because we sold 25,000 tickets live in one fucking market.
Would it have killed the other markets for the live match?
Probably.
I mean, what would Watts do? Like Vince used to, remember, like in the late 80s, guys would work the loop, and then at the end of the time working together, then you'd see that match on Saturday night's main event.
See, that's why Watts would have probably seen that, wait a minute, I don't have to rent. I can gross the same thing in one night without having to rent these other 12 buildings and without having to pay wrestlers another 12 times. I will still rent those buildings, but he would have been smart enough to come up with a mega event that you could only see in the Superdome and still be running his regular business in all the other towns regularly. And he always had a number of issues going at the same time, and he would have also been smart enough to build to it in every local promo, every local interview segment. We would have been talking about, we're going to try to put you down, Rock and Roll, before the Dome, because there's no way that you're going to get the Midnight Express with me in that cage above the ring. So we're going to be in Lafayette, and we're going to fuck you up. And it would have all been geared toward making the matches leading into that important as well. I think he could have done it. And can you imagine?
What would the ticket price be? If the ticket what would the ticket prices actually to go to, let's say, the Superdome for the last Stampede?
I'm going to say that they did a golden circle or some kind of front row probably for $25. I would say that the rest of ringside, without looking at any information, rest of ringside probably 15, 12, and then general admission either 10 and 8.
Because that's the question.
Like in Houston for the last Stampede, they were 15, 12, 10, 8, and 4, I believe, $4 for kids. So prices along that line is what they were doing, and the Dome would be maybe a few dollars higher on the front row. Do
you think in 1984, the home consumer, the wrestling fan would be willing to pay $15 to sit home and watch that show?
Well, in 1987 and 88, they were costing $20 and $25.
That's true.
So why would... I mean, when you think about it, my God, okay, I can drive an hour from my house because I live in Bogalusa. And I can, then park at the Superdome and then buy a $10 or $15 ticket and then buy food and shit and then drive home. Or I could spend $20 and watch it on TV.
If Vince hadn't gone national, and let's say throughout 1984 and 85, the territory system remains, although everyone still has issues with one another, as they always did, would someone be able to, if someone got national pay-per-view, would they be able to work with the other promoters and have a little bit from everyone so they could try to promote it nationally? Kind of like what Vince tried to do with Inoki and Ali.
No, because in the territory days, if somebody had gotten national pay-per-view, they would have done through the roof numbers in their own territory and negligible numbers most other places. Maybe if it was Atlanta, and then we're talking about taking off in a whole different direction, but the same thing with cable television. If it was Atlanta, they'd know the wrestlers on TBS if they had cable. And probably the thing that sold most early cable customers on getting cable was wrestling, because every wrestling fan couldn't wait to get cable. When they saw the fucking lines being strung, they were camped out in a lawn chair to watch wrestling. So if a national pay-per-view distributor saw the numbers that, let's say, Mid-South did in New Orleans or in Houston or in Oklahoma or whatever, they thought, oh my God, this is a gold mine. And put it on in Seattle and you'd have got 4 people ordered it, maybe. And then they would look at that and they'd go, oh, well, shit, this shit won't fly at all. It would have doomed the territories to do national pay-per-view because they probably wouldn't have done any business out like the whole goddamn thing that happened in the live houses, in that Vince couldn't draw a house in the Carolinas or Tennessee or Texas or the Mid-South territory. But at the same point, nobody in fucking Boston or New York really wanted to see goddamn, they didn't know who the fucking people were. So it would have been a profitable thing if you used the technology for each promoter in the territories, the local cable systems, if they could have done something like that. Because remember, the cable systems in those days picked up the pay-per-views if they wanted, and if they didn't want. Remember, because Vince strong-armed all the cable systems into not carrying Starrcade 87, or they couldn't have WrestleMania the next spring. But 5 of the cable companies said, fuck you, we're going to carry it. And most of them were in the Carolinas, including Charlotte. That's how I was able to tape it at home.
This is also before there was a third party in between the promoter or the event owner or the producer, whatever the thing may be, and the actual cable companies.
Right.
There weren't pay-per-view companies that were owned by the cable companies that were there to be the middleman to get a bigger cut.
Right, because they hadn't had time to set those things up.
Yeah.
But if you could have used the technology, and if each of the promoters, if Fritz in Dallas could have gone to whatever the major cable system was there and had them line up others in Texas, or if Watts in his territory, or Crockett in the Carolinas, and they could have broadcast them on a regional basis, they would have made a fucking fortune because of the rabid Crockett in 1986 grossed $21 million. That's what he admitted to in our lawsuit in Beckley. And that was from ticket sales. They weren't getting any money from television, and there wasn't a pay-per-view yet. And they, the only closed circuit they did was Starrcade on Thanksgivings. So if he was selling $20 million a year practically worth of live event tickets, and you could have seen, major shows in your own home there, those people were crazy for wrestling. The Rock and Roll Express will be boiled in oil if they don't beat the Midnight Express. Holy fuck. Whatever. So I think that, unfortunately, we peaked a little early in the 80s before the technology caught up with us.
Well, my point was going to be more just the idea that if you were going to have a pay-per-view from your territory, what if you went to the other territories and said, hey, send me a match? I would have it there. But then really, what is the incentive for the other promoter to give you a big match if they're not going to have it in their territory? It'll air on your show.
But no, here's the thing. If Fritz was to say to Watts, hey, I'm running Reunion Arena and I'm going to pay-per-view this thing all over the state of Texas, send me Junkyard Dog and whoever the fuck, then Watts would say, okay, well, I'm doing the same thing in the Dome next month, and I'm going to send it all over Oklahoma, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana, and they're going to be able to get it in Houston, and send me Kerry and whoever. And but they wouldn't show the thing in each other's predominant areas. Of course, there's always going to be some overlap with the cable systems, but if you worked with the neighboring territory to make sure that you weren't goddamn using a guy that's in Arkansas, his leg's supposed to be broken in Mississippi, you'd still could have done it. The differences in the television ratings that they have now and that people are used to in terms of quantifying how many people watch wrestling on television is completely skewed because this is one program from one company that's seen at the same time all over the country, and we have a number for it based on our computerized shit. And it would have taken a team of accountants probably a week and a half to tally up all the viewership that Watts had in the Mid-South territory or Crockett had in the Carolinas and Virginia and his syndication, because there were stations all over the place. And again, there's a difference in the rating of cable television and broadcast television. And there's a difference in the way that it's reported from 40 years ago until now, we used to get, okay, the number of homes. And they would say, and the average viewers in a home is 1.7 or 2.1. Because that's before everybody had their own fucking TV in every room or could watch it on their phone. And they had all these statistics of how they figured this shit out. And it was, for example, remember we talked about the Ohio Valley Wrestling TV ratings here in Louisville. I said, yeah, we did a lot of ones, 1.5. Sometimes we'd hit a 2. And somebody was on goddamn Twitter going, well, he's a fucking liar. A 2 rating would be like 5 million people or what, thinking that that's the only kind of way to measure television is a national cable rating. It's a 1 in local television means it's a 1 in that universe. And we've seen the documentation that Watts in, what was it, in Greenwood, Mississippi? Didn't he used to do a 50 fucking rating? And in Memphis, the numbers were off the charts, and we've talked about it a million times. Watts was in New Orleans, Louisiana, which was a major fucking market. On, as I recall, if not an independent station, it was at least a UHF station. He was doing local ratings in the 20s. That's not, the local news doesn't even do those numbers anymore.
Before we wrap everything up here today, talking about anniversaries and 40 years ago, right now as we are recording, early November, mid-November 1983, Jim Cornette, before you know what's going to go on with Mid-South Wrestling, you were smart, you were keeping up with things, you were getting videos from around the world. Where did you think wrestling was going at that point?
Until I didn't see Hogan win the WWF title until I was in the first apartment that I had in Alexandria, Louisiana. I was already in Mid-South. And that's when I was, something's up here. And the people started leaving the various territories. In the end of 83, I was thinking it might be the end of my wrestling career coming up shortly because I can't be booked any less or I'd be invisible. And I knew that they were doing huge business in Dallas, Texas. I saw the world-class tapes. They're selling out Reunion Arena. And, Norman Dooley was sending me the Mid-Atlantic TVs. And, he was doing his newsletter. There was no Wrestling Observer then, or I wasn't cognizant of it yet.
It was there. You weren't getting it yet.
It was there, but I wasn't aware of it. But there had been, Terry Justice had just got killed in that car wreck in 82, I think. But he had been sending out stuff. We knew the kind of business they were doing in Charlotte and in the Carolinas, and the Starrcade thing, they're going to do closed circuit. Holy shit. I'm like, wow, wrestling's doing great. I'm just doing the shits. And, I didn't have any idea in November 1983 that it was going to changed as drastically as it did and be pretty much gone in 5 or 6 years as a business that we knew. But I could tell that things were hot and things were happening. Memphis was a little bit down, but it had been hot all summer. I just hadn't been a part of the big business. So I'm thinking, wrestling, the AWA, Vern Hogan was doing huge business at that time. So I knew, God, everybody's doing so good. And here I am. I had no idea that the whole thing was going to get so good that it would fucking self-destruct in, like I said, by the end of the decade. But I knew the wrestling business had never been friskier. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to stay in it.
All right. Well, that was what you thought 40 years ago.
Well, yeah. And that's what you think. But so that's what we're going to be doing on various shows from now on. Maybe on the drive-through, we're going to go through my November day by day. Oh, dear Lord, these things I pray. Book me more dearly. I'll tell you, November 1st, I was in Wilson, Arkansas. And guess who beat me by disqualification in a wrestling match?
In Wilson, Arkansas?
Yes.
So they would have been working on the B team shows. And you make it sound like it'd be a surprise. So I'm not going to even say Bobby Eaton or anyone. Jerry Calhoun.
No. Tom Pritchard.
Oh, wow. Really?
Before he was a doctor even. He hadn't graduated yet. But it was by disqualification because they wanted to save the heat on me so I could come out twice more. And my guys get beat then. Anyway, so we're going to talk about November 1983. We're going to come up with more discussion about the Starcades and where is that clip we did of Thanksgiving wrestling? Where does that reside? Is that on the Arcadian Vanguard channel or on the official Jim Cornette? Do we know that?
I am not sure. I will double check that. Of course, you can go to the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube channel on YouTube, and of course the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel, and I'll see if it's in an omnibus. If it's not, we need to do a historical omnibus pretty soon.
Yes, but the point is, on Thanksgiving night of 1983, we at one point figured out that well over 100,000 people in the United States saw a live wrestling event of some kind, if you count the closed circuit from Starcade. There was Reunion Arena in Dallas. There was obviously Starcade. There was the fucking big show in St. Paul, Minneapolis, St. Paul, that, Hogan was on top of, one of the last ones, right? And every territory had an event of some description. So there were over 100,000 people saw different live wrestling events in one night. And by the end of the fucking decade, there's like 3 companies left. But it's going to take us 7 years to get there because we're not going to rush this thing. So anyway, are we done here for right now? That's a tease for the drive-thru.
I think we certainly are for right now.
For right now, we're done, but we're not done for good. So come on back for more. And until then, thank you. Fuck you. Bye-bye, everybody.